There we go. I don't give a shit. Right, are you both? I need to send. Somebody want to check that's going out? That's playing out.
This could be the chance for Stoll. He's gaining. He's not going to split them up the middle. He's done it.
Has been going on board with John Houillard. Houillard's going to commit. He comes off to the inside. There's Boreck and he's going to spin it. He tried his best. How did he catch it? John never stopped.
Good morning, good afternoon and good evening from wherever you may be in the world, and thank you for joining me here in Magdeburg on the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben for the virtual World Sportscar Championship. Historic. Today we have 70 laps around this beautiful circuit. I'm joined in the commentary booth by James Parfait, Alec King and of course Paul Glover on production. James, welcome to Magdeburg, Germany. This beautiful, Oschersleben track, and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, it should be an absolute stunner. Round 3, of course. You know, last time out in Sebring, it was an interesting one as well. I'm going to find it interesting, you know, because we were talking in the green room before. I've not been here commentating or broadcasting on this circuit. You know, so it's going to be interesting from my point of view, you know, how this one pans out, because it doesn't look like there's a lot of opportunities of passing, and throwing rain into the mix as well. It's going to be an even more difficult challenge than normal.
You said it, rain is involved in it, something that we haven't seen so far with these cars, James, and I'm excited to see how these cars are going to handle. Opened in 1997, this circuit, currently hosting the DTM, which is one of the biggest series running on this track. Now, this track, we did touch a little bit in the green room, James. It's going to be difficult for these cars really to overtake on, but then you throw rain in the mixer, and then that's going to make things even more difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think at that point we can bring Alec into the booth. He'll be able to tell us how difficult it's going to be in these cars. Welcome in, Alec.
Hi, hey guys, hey, how's it going? Yeah, no, this circuit is definitely, it's something special with it basically being a flat circuit. There's really not any camber or anything on the corners, and with these cars it can be very tricky just with how heavy they are and how the different characteristics. And now that we've thrown rain into the equation, these cars already have such low grip that it's really, really going to be a struggle for them today.
Well, there we go, it's going to be an interesting one today. Also, well, we are expecting 33 cars on the track today. Today, of course, we are at Oschersleben. Let's take a look at the calendar and how all things are going to shape up. Of course, the right-hand side of this is the Saturdays, the left-hand side the Tuesdays. So, of course, today at Oschersleben, 250 kilometers 25th of March, of course, today. 1st of April, we will go to Silverstone, which will be an exciting one. I heard that James was looking forward to that one. Hockenheim on the 6th of May. Le Mans on the 20th of May, the 2.4 hours. That's going to be an exciting one. Dijon on the 29th of July. Hungaroring on 19th of August. Of course, 250 kilometers there too. Then a little bit of a longer race at Suzuka, the 2nd of September, 400 kilometers there. 250 kilometers once again at Donington. So once again we move to the UK on the 30th of September. Then we move to the beautiful country of Austria and to the hills on the 28th of October. Miami on the 25th of November. And then Laguna Seca to round off the season on the 2nd of December. All in all, James, I would say it's an exciting calendar.
It definitely is. And look at the tracks. Silverstone, Suzuka, Donington, finishing at Laguna. You know, they're all a wide mixture of different circuits that these cars have got a battle. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out and how they get on across the season, because there's a lot of different tracks with a lot of different features. And these cars have got to cope with it all.
Well, you've missed the best of them all. Le Mans, the Circuit de la Sarthe. 2.4 hours at that track. I'm going to be looking forward to that one always. Has been excited really to go to a 24, in this case a 2.4 hour race. These are the tires that the drivers will be using here today. Michelin, Bridgestone are all with us here. Dunlop, 2 soft and hard tires for the drivers, of course. I don't know if they will be using them today, James, because we do have rain out on track, a rain tire for all these manufacturers too. So yeah, looking forward really to see how the drivers go with the rain out on track. Tires, all in all, is going to be an interesting part, of course. If it turns to dry, and we do see a dry line up here, we might well see some drivers run the soft tire.
Yeah, they're not going to be at the moment. They're not going to be. Otherwise, they're just going to be off. I think it's just going to be rain all the way through. And they say unless we get the notification, it's going to stop or it's going to dry up. But currently, at the moment, it's not. And I think from their point of view, at the moment, I would probably hold off before they even think about going on to the soft or hards, because otherwise they're just going to be ice.
Yeah, Alec, of course, you have had some experience, of course, out on track. You've been driving this track, so you can probably tell us, well, the most tricky parts and the challenges that the drivers have to deal with here this evening.
Yes, no, this track is definitely really tricky. Turns 4 through 7 is a really high-speed section, but with these cars, they get really unsettled in making those tight transitions, and especially at super high speeds. As you come through out of 3, you rocket down the straightaway, and so in 4, 5, 6, it's really hard to find a fine line through and into 7. So be on the lookout for a lot of guys when they go through the kink through 4 and 5 to lose the rear end and possibly have some incidents. It's definitely going to be a hot spot to look out for accidents there today.
Yeah, well, of course, this track, like we've said, 14 corners, some really exciting one. We're going to take a look at the championships too, because those are all interesting here with us this evening. Of course, we have 4 championships, and we're going to start with the LMGT2 AM standing. It's Filippo Marazzi, who's leading the way there on 16 points ahead of Maximilian Petrovski on 10 points, 6 points from Matthew in third, and then Alan Hanglin, who hasn't scored points yet. One team who hasn't been classified yet is the Rock Motorsports team in that class. So all exciting really there, James, and all still close to fight for. Moving on then to the LMGT2 Championships, the LMGT2 Pro Championship. Matthew Overton is leading the way there on 16 points together with Ben Borman. If I look at my sheet that I have here in front of me, of course, Ben Borman won last time out, so he took a good chunk of points there out of Matthew Overton. Dave Coors is in third on 6 points together with Ross Smith, and JT Tammy is on 4 points in fifth. Joe Miller in sixth on 3 points. The only one who haven't scored points yet is Tim Vandenberg, of course, DNF'd in the last race out at Sebring. James, why don't you read us through the LMGT 1AM Championship?
So you got Wayne Hutchinson currently in first place there in the Mercedes-Benz CLK. Barry Dimarzo in second. Jerry Chen in third. George Angelidis in fourth. Eric Monet in fifth. Stephen Miller in sixth. Gwilym Bank in seventh. Tom Mountjoy in eighth. Becky Eli in ninth. They're the last of the point scorers. Mike Olsen, Tony Bonton, and Graham Duncombe have not scored points. In the team championships on the right-hand side, we don't know. We will never know.
We will.
Speed Details in first, Momo Scuderia Cavalli in second, Golf Racing third, and then Hardtail Racing in fourth place.
Well, moving on to the LMGT1 Championship, of course, the car is being driven, or he has driven in this car. Well, why don't you go ahead, of course, Alec, and read us through that one.
Yes. In first place, we have Walter in the Mercedes CLK with 14. He's been really fast this season, but does have a penalty today, so we'll have to see how that plays out. In second place, we have Johnny Gutierrez with 11 points. He came off his win last weekend, so last round, very good to see him. Hopefully he can fight for another win today. Magnus Dahlgren in the Toyota GT1 with 8 points is tied with Ethan Funk, who is our fast dart in the Nissan, so that's one car not many people run. Timon Suvic in 5th. Luciano Ichazo in the Panos in 6th with 4 points. 7th place is John Yuan. 8th place is Brian Hall. 9th place is Alex Garicki. 10th is Alexander, no last name there. 11th is Jaquan Cordret in the Toyota. Norm Grath in 12th. Victor Geneva in 13th. And then Gilles Lalonde in 14th with half a point. 14th through 17th with Gilles, Jason, and Philippe all have half a point. And then we round out the last 3 with Brandon Grant, Adrian Rice, and then myself with no points. But if we look at our team championship, we have Rookie Monsters in first with 14 points. Those guys have been really fast this season. Me Racing with 9 points, tied with Depth Racing for in third. 4th place is Scholes Rensport with 5.5 points. And 5th place is CMS Pro with John Yuan and Dan Kirby with 3.5 points.
A lot to go through there. As you can see, only one team, of course, Rookie Monsters Mercedes, being driven only by Wouter de Pine. So he, on his own, is, of course, carrying that team to...
Here in the Porsche 911 GT2, of course, currently on circuit as well. Now, the interesting... Oh, well, he was, of course. He was. And then an invisible wall. Love it. So, but I think the interesting thing with practice is we've been sat here watching some of the pit practice, and we've seen a lot of people struggle in these cars in the rain. And I think, it's going to be a struggle, this circuit. I can't see many sort of getting through without taking grass trips.
Yeah, well, of course, we have had qualifying now. We are into qualifying. 20 minutes of qualifying we usually have here, of course. We're already about 7-8 minutes in. And as you can see, it is at the moment Rice on top in, the GT2 Pro standings. Oh, that's a bit of a snap there from Maximilian Potravki. He's off the track in the Porsche 911. And once again, I'm showing you how difficult the conditions are out on track at the moment. In the GT2 AM class, it is Marazzi leading the way at the moment. As you can see, yellow in Sector 3. That will probably be for Maximilian Potravki, who we see off track here. And of course, driving in these conditions, the only thing I can imagine driving in these conditions is it being horrible to put the power down and just try to not let the rear end break out.
Yes, no, in these cars, it's very, very difficult just because of how the tires are. These cars are very low grip, and they have a lot of horsepower. This was a time in history when these cars ran where it basically was open. You could run pretty much whatever, so there's a lot of power, and it was even tricky when I was running in just the dry to try and get power down, coming out of some of the corners because of how most of the corners here are all tight hairpins. When you throw in wet and you throw in some water, it's going to be tricky for everyone.
The pits have not been opened yet for the LMGT1s. It's only 7 cars out on track at the moment, 5 cars that have set a lap time so far, because it's only the LMGT2 cars out on track. And like I said, it's the LMGT2 AM class leading the way actually ahead of the LMGT Pro class, as far as I can see. Rice at the moment is second behind Marazzi in the race. So the AM's coming through here in qualifying, James.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is that doesn't normally happen in most series. Like, you wouldn't expect that sort of thing to be happening. but it depends on. In a weird way, you almost want to think that the AMs are being a little bit more sensible than the pros and just getting times on the board. You know, they're not doing the fastest times, but at least they're setting a time. And I think that's the important thing, is the AMs are actually getting a time on the board. Whether or not the pros are going out with a mentality thinking that maybe, you know, they can push a little bit harder, and unfortunately for them, it's not quite working out. So their times are a bit slower, and some of them have been off and stuff like that. But I think for now, the AMs can sit back with a big old chip on their shoulder and saying, ha ha ha, look what we can do.
Well, they're coming through here in the rain. Very treacherous conditions out there, as you can see. Difficult to keep the cars on track. He's purple once again, though. In Sector 1 is Filippo Marazzi, who is going to try and improve the qualifying lap that he is already on. All 7 cars have now set a lap time. It's Dave Coors in 6th and Joe Miller at the moment in 7th. So those are all the GT2s that we have here with us this evening. Of course, this being historic car, James, I do love watching these historic cars just go around the circuit, and yeah, I enjoy a trip back in time.
Give me a Viper. All day.
I agree.
All day. Viper all day. You know, I don't know about you, Alec. What do you think?
I gotta go with the 993. I'm a Porsche guy at heart, so and today with the rain, the 993 is looking to be one of the faster cars. I think that's why we see the AM drivers up front. This Porsche can just handle these conditions a lot better than some of the other cars like the Marcos and the Viper. They have a lot of power, so getting the power down with them can be really tricky.
As we can see.
Yeah, there, demonstrating that perfectly, right on cue. It's Adrian Rice, not improving at the moment in any sectors for himself. He's in first of the LMGT2 Pro class. And he's at the moment, well, he's not going to shoot himself up because he's going to stay where he was. He is in fourth at the moment. The GT1s now, their pit lane exit has opened, which will mean that we will see the quicker cars now out on track. Here you can see Ross Smith in the Marcos, and he's going to try and improve his time. He's green in Sector 1. This will be his last opportunity here, James. And his last opportunity to try and get up into the class pole position. He's not going to do that. He's going to go straight into the wall. Back into pit lane he goes. And his last chance to try and improve his time, well, it did not come through. And he is going to start from P6 overall.
Do you know that's quite scary, right? Do you know why it's scary? Because we just went on board with 4 different people, started talking about them 4 people, and all 4 of them ended up in the wall or the gravel.
Well,
talking about a commentator's curse.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if at that point you can still call it a commentator's curse, because it happening 4 times in a row. Yeah, it's wow, never seen that before. Anyways, the GT1s are out on track at the moment. We're looking with Francesco Cancos. Excuse me, Concas. Yeah, exactly. Set that the wrong way around. Performance in 8th overall, but no time set there in that class yet. And I do expect these GT1s to be a lot quicker here in the rain than the GT2s. I expect them to be, what, around 8-9 seconds quicker towards the 131s here?
Oh, Alec.
Yes,
that's a question for you, sir.
Yes. I'd say just about 10 seconds. In our practice session right before we went into quali, Francesco Concas actually had the fastest time with a 1:29. So in the Porsches. So the Porsche is both Porsches, and GT1 and GT2 are both really good in the wet. So it's really going to come down. You're going to look to see about 10 seconds. So with this being a short lap and there being that much of a gap, the lap traffic is going to come into play here throughout a lot of this race. They're going to catch traffic fairly quickly and have to fight their way through it throughout the whole race.
Well, there has been made some changes to the BOP, of course. The Porsche has got a nerf on their top speed, of course, from last time out at Sebring. The McLaren has got a nerf on their top speed and their braking. So BOP changes have been made. Do you think that's going to make a difference here this evening, gents?
Yes, it will. But I initially thought it was the other way round.
Yes, the Porsche actually didn't get a nerf. It got a up on top speed. The Porsche was down on drag last round at Sebring, as we saw. They struggled a little bit on pace, just didn't have the drive down the straightaway and everything. We actually saw they were almost 16 to 20 kilometers an hour slower down the straights at Sebring, which Sebring doesn't really have that long of straights. So they went ahead and adjusted it, and now we can see some of the Porsches coming back. But it does make them tricky, I found, within testing. As you can see there, the rear end gets really tail happy now. So the rear end is very light when you put it under load, so you got to be careful.
Well, some difficulties there for the Porsche also here for Daniel Kirby, who's at the moment in the overall pole position on a 134.401. It seems like conditions even worse than they were out there in practice. So we might not see those 129s that we saw earlier. Our quickest lap time in this session so far has been a 122.404. That has been when it was dry, not when it was wet. So I don't think we will see those times being improved here in qualifying, neither in the race. Usually the drivers running a little bit heavier in the race. Purple again for Daniel Kirby in sector 1, and again he's going to try and make an improvement here on the lap that he's sent already, and he's 8/10 ahead at the moment, Alec, of the field.
Yes, Dan Kirby is a regular here in both our historic and modern series. He's definitely our favorite hot shoe, and it always runs up front in whatever car he's running in. So to see him up front is not surprising. Him and John Yuan with the CMS Pro team have this Panos played out great, but he did go slightly slower in Sector 2, about a tenth, almost 2/10 slower in Sector 2. So we'll have to see. I do think he will be able to improve, but maybe not as much as what he would hope to.
We're going to see come the end of this lap. It's not long to go now. Only this right-hander, then he turns on to the start-finish straight. Across the line he will go, and we're going to see if he can improve. Is it enough of an improvement in Sector 1? Not in Sector 3, any improvements. He's not going to jump up any positions anymore because he was already in P1. Time also not improved. Here's a big cluster of cars who's going to try and improve. Ethan Funk with the best first sector time of anyone. So he took that from Daniel Kirby, who's currently in pole position. Can he improve? Can he get a little bit closer to what Kirby has done? Not at the moment. Stays at 8/10 back. And it seems like that pole position time that Kirby has set here, early on here, James, could well be the pole position time because conditions not getting better out there on track.
No, they're not. And that's one of the things that these guys have got to be able to cope with. You know, they've got to find where Kirby's getting his pace from, right? They're all in, you know, they're all on the same track. It's just obviously Kirby has got that panel styled in a lot more than, say, Funk and Comcast have got. So they need to find out where, because we talk about 70 laps, but if you're losing nearly a second a lap every lap to a gentleman going around, you know, on a very quick time on a 134, you're going to be losing 70 seconds as it evolves with the pit stops and everything else. You know, you're going to be losing a chunk of time to this man here from the CMS Pro. So they've got to sort of kind of work out what's going on somewhere, because otherwise this group of cars could be in a lot of trouble.
Here he is, Becchielli, purple in Sector 1, James. So he might be able to improve. He's quickest of anyone in his class. Of course, the GT1 AM class. Becchielli is going to, yes, he is. He is going to slow down. I don't know why he would do that. Maybe a little bit of a snap, maybe setting up for next lap and seeing what he can do then. Maybe tire, temperature's running a bit too high in that car. We don't know at the moment. Now, Alec, something I do want to touch on is, of course, the difference in performance once we go from qualifying to the race. You've seen it before here, as, of course, even Funk has improved a little bit. 5/10 the gap now is for him to Kirby. But the difference in performance in the cars from qualifying to the race, we might well see different cars come to the front come race time.
Yes. Beyond the eye for Ethan Funk and Francesco Concas. Those cars are very good on tires over a pace. The Panos is always good in the Mercedes and the Toyota as well. When it comes to quali, they have really good opening pace in the stint. But when it comes later on in this stint, the Nissan and the Porsche and some of the slower cars like the McLaren, they tend to come back. They're easier on their tires. So you'll have to see it. So as we see Kirby's up right here, he'll definitely start up front and start to pull away at the beginning of the stint, but look forward towards the end when we get into our pit stop cycle, because you will see some of the slower cars that were easier on their tires, they just don't get the power down as hard, are going to slowly start to creep their way back into the picture.
Daniel Kirby, purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2, does not have long to go, a left and a right-hander, and then he will turn on to the start-finish straight, and we're going to see if he's going to be able to improve his time. At the moment, Ethan Funk, 5/10 behind on Daniel Kirby. Is that going to be a bigger gap in just a moment's time? We're going to see one right-hander he has to go. Does that successfully across the line? Daniel Kirby will go to a 132.319. Absolutely blitzed the field on 2.6 seconds to Ethan Funk. It looks like everyone is improving out there, James. It is crunch time now, track improving, and well, we might well see some quicker times pop in.
Yeah, I should definitely hope so. There's quite a few people going quicker currently at this moment in time, so we're going to see some interesting times as they start coming across the board. Keep an eye on the left-hand side on the timing tower, guys, as people are going to come to the end of their laps and see how they get on. There's green sectors flying around all over the place currently at the moment, and with 1 minute 13 left, we'll see how this one pans out as Brian Hall currently goes into 4th place as well. So Hall has gone quicker once more.
Well, we're going to see what he's going to be able to do. Everyone on an out lap at the moment on new tyres, which will mean that they will have the best possible opportunity of improving here in this qualifying lap. And if you can see, between the leaders, it is 1.2 seconds at the moment. Behind that, though, if you see P3, P4 and P5, it is all rather close. And well, of course, if you can see P5 and P6, only 11 thousandths of a second between those two drivers. And in the rain, that is pretty impressive. Daniel Kirby, not an improvement anymore, so he might well have to watch out. He's going to get one more go at it once he comes through the right-hander. And well, he has one right-hander to go now, and then he will start his final lap. He has prepared everything he can, and he's going to go at it one more time. Well, across the line he goes. It's not going to post a improvement. I guess no, a 139.405 for Kirby. That is far of a improvement, about 6-7 cents for him into turn 1. It's going to go a bit deep. Turn 1, a tricky corner, especially in the wet. Even in the dry, it's not one that you easily hook up. But Daniel Kirby's going to hook that apex curb. He's now going to make his way round. The left hand is going to pull over, though. He's not going to go any further. Daniel Kirby has done what he needed to do. He's now got to wait on everyone behind him if they can improve, James.
Yeah, as soon as he made a bit of a hash of turn 1, I think that was him going to be done. He needed to go through there as smooth as he possibly can, but he was never going to make it if he didn't get through turn 1 properly here as well. We've got Gilles Lalonde has just come through the left and right, so we've got 2 corners remaining for him there. Green in sector 1, yellow sector 2. Let's see how he's going to get on as he's come around the final corner of this racetrack, Dan. See if he can snipe some positions away. Only time will tell very shortly.
He did go a bit deep into that last corner, so does Wouter de Bruin. Talking about Wouter de Bruin, of course, we said it a bit earlier on. I think Alex mentioned, or Alec mentioned it a bit earlier on. He has a drive-through penalty that he will need to serve at the start of the race within the first 3 laps. Stefan Miller is one of the last drivers out on track. He's going to go across the line. Can he improve? Yes, he can, to a 136.966. That's going to improve his time, but he stays in 17th. Overall, there we go. That is qualifying for you. It's all completed, and we do have our starting grid set now. But like I said, Wouter de Bruin is going to have a drive-through penalty, James, to serve. And Alec, of course, have you had any experience with a drive-through penalty on this track? I don't really know how long the pit delta is here, but that is going to be a significant penalty for him at the start of the race.
Yes, I mean, standard pit delta, I have not been able to have any experience with one with a full pit cycle on here, but standard pit delta for most tracks is between 30 to 40 seconds. You know, you have to slow down to pit speed and then be really cautious and make your way all the way through. This does have a tricky pit exit, though, I will say that. It's a very tight left-right through the pits, and then the blend line also, too, can come into play, so he's just got to be careful. I can see in the future, whenever he goes to make his penalty, coming out of the pits, he's going to blend in with the GT2s. I kind of expect to see that. So he's just got to be really smart and be really patient whenever he has to come in to make his cycle, and not get a speeding penalty going through the pits, and just be smart and try to claw his way back into the race.
Well, we're going to bring you up the starting order right now. And we're going to take a look at who's going to start from pole position. Of course, we know that Francesco Concas is going to start from pole position. Philippe Henrique is going to start in second. Ethan Funk third. Mike Olsen in P4. Leader, of course, of the GT1 AM class. Brian Dimarzo in P5. Dave Coors in P6. Peter Meyer in P7. And Joe Miller in P8. Then in P9 we will have, as we wait for starting grid to roll through, there we go, Stefan Miller in P9, Jason Withard in P10, P11 for Gilles Lalonde, and Guilherme Benke in P12. I don't think this is correct. I saw GT2s instead of GT1s, which I think, honestly, James, is a bit weird, considering the fact that we have had the qualifying session, and we saw that the GT1s were considerably quicker than the GT2s.
Yeah, and also Daniel Kirby wasn't on pole.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was Daniel Kirby on pole. It was not Konkats who was on the pole position. But yeah, there we go. This is going to be the starting order. Daniel Kirby will start from pole position under Francesco Concas in second. Magnus Dahlgren is going to start in third. Brian Holford, Becky Ellis, Paul Sitter for the GT1 AM class. Timon Suvik in 6th, Gilles Lalonde in P7, George Angelides in P8, Ethan Funk P9, George Chen in P10. Of course, Ethan Funk had a great opening of his qualifying, but not quite able really to continue that trend into the end of qualifying. Got pit by about, 7 other drivers, and he looked quick, didn't quite prove it. In P11, we will find ourselves with Jason Withard, who will start in P11. Luciano Ichazo in P12. Felipe Enrique in P13. Walter de Bruin, of course, with that drive-through penalty, he will lose a lot at the start, so his starting position won't really matter to him. He will just try and stay clean, serve that penalty as soon as possible, but he's going to start 14th overall. Eric Monnier in P15. Mike Olsen in P16. Stefan Miller, P17. Barry Dimarzo in P18. Alexander Schultz in P19. And Guilherme Benche in P20. That's the top 20 for you. Continuing then with P21, Felipe Marazzi, of course, pole sitter for the GT2s, and that is a GT2 AM driver who's leading the way there. And in fact, it's a full top 3 of GT2 AM drivers. So those GT2 cars looking like they were quick here in this qualifying session. Maximilian Petrovski in second in the GT2 AM class, and 22nd overall. Peter Meyer in third in the GT2 AM, and in 23rd overall. Adrian Rice will start on pole position for the GT2 Pro class. Ross Smith in 25th. Dave Course in 26th. Joe Miller 27th. Tom Montroy in P28, and Matthew Sibinjoni in P29. Those are all the drivers that we have with us here this evening. All in all, a pretty big starting grid. 29 drivers who will take part in the start. 70 laps here on the Motorsports Arena Oschersleben. And I think, Alec, it's going to prove for a very interesting race, especially in the wet.
Yes, the wet conditions, we've been saying it all broadcast, that it's going to be very tricky, especially in these cars. They're heavy, they've got power, they don't have a lot of downforce, so it's going to be hard to manage everything throughout this race. Just got to be really smart. You know, we're expecting 2 to possibly 3 stops. With the wet, I'm going to go ahead and say 2. Just trying to manage your tires and manage this whole race. It's a really tight track. It's not a long circuit. Traffic is going to come into play. So there's a lot more variables now with the wet that have come into this race that is going to make it very tricky for everyone to try and manage through.
Of course, wet conditions, something, James, that we haven't had yet. I can't recall seeing a wet race even in the Modern Championship that, of course, the Virtual World Sports Car Championship also has. That is going to be running next week, of course. And, well, it's going to be interesting, especially with these, well, historic cars. We both know, James, historic cars, even in the dry, very tricky to handle, and especially in the wet. So it's going to make, I think, for at least an interesting opening phase of this race.
Yeah, any wet weather race is going to be interesting. One of the interesting things they're going to have is spray. Racing closely together, they're going to have spray. Don't forget their orange zone is literally 3/4 of the lap. Doesn't stop them overtaking, of course, but it does give them harsher penalties if they do make a mistake from going around from turn 1 all the way through to around turn 10, basically. So they're going to be careful, but spray's going to be massive. And I tell you what, if we don't see at least 1 or 2 cars off between turn 1 and turn 10, I will be very surprised. Because they were all looking like some of them were really struggling in quali, really struggling in practice as well before. You know, we saw Barry Dimarzo have an absolute dreadful practice from his standard, and I think it's going to be a tough one keeping them on track. I can't see any other way that they're not going to trickle around to make sure they get there first.
Yeah, And we, of course, will see the drivers now go out on track to configure their pit box C, Alec, if they're not in a pit box together with anyone. Because as we know, of course, we saw it last time out at Sebring with the modern ones, it does sometimes happen that you do share pit boxes with someone. So as we can see, the drivers now go out onto their pit box, see where their pit box is, and then just, well, configure it if they're not together with anyone. And if you're together with anyone, Alec, what can you do really about it?
There's really not much you can. You can try and communicate. These drivers are all, they all have an ability to communicate with each other. So it just depends. You know, a little R Factor 2 bug that has kind of been around for a while, where sometimes you do end up sharing a pit box with somebody and you get stuck. So the best thing to do that everyone has kind of learned through the past races is pull to the left. If you're the first driver in, try and pull to the left, and sometimes the box will set itself to where you can squeeze 2 cars into one pit stall and it'll override itself to where you can do it. But if not, just communicate. If someone has to, if you're sharing a pit stop, someone may try and come in early just to try and give you that room, or if you have to, fuel save a little bit to try and stay out a lap longer, so that way you don't have to worry about any crazy blend that comes in.
Yeah, of course, I do have to mention now, I did make a mistake. Next week is not the modern one, that's the historic at Silverstone. The modern will be in 2 weeks' time on the 8th. Of April, and that will run at Long Beach. So that's one to look forward to too, of course. But next week is Silverstone, and that is with the historics. Now, as Alex just said, we do know that it can happen. You can be in a pit box with someone else, and we just saw it happen, I think, at the end of pit lane. Now, like you said, fuel saving is going to be a strategy here, James. Do you think that the rain will make it just that little bit more easy to try and fuel save a bit, or will it still be everyone on equal playing field?
Well, I think that's one of the things we were talking about earlier on. They were discussing whether or not we were going to, what the situation was going to be for pit stops. GT1s, they reckon, should be 2 stops. 70 laps, 2 stops. At least, right? They were saying at least 2 stops. Now, the GT2s, the interesting thing about that is whether or not that some of these guys, with fuel saving, could stretch this to 1 stop. That's going to be the trial period. Whether or not the GT2 AMs and the pros can stretch it to 1 stop. Now, it'll be interesting to see if they can, but for a minute, I think we're going to say at least a minimum of 1, as we see somebody just going literally through the bollards there that clearly... I just don't stop anything, because they just, as you can see, the trouble they've already got here going around this race circuit with people going off already.
Well, the bollards usually, James, are just there to tell you that you can't cut that corner. Now, don't give a racing driver a chance to cut a corner, because we all 3 know that if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. They will do it every lap, and if it's allowed, then they will do it every time to gain time. Luckily, in R Factor 2, it's not allowed to do that every corner. Of course, the bollards are just there to tell you, of course, that is a track limit. If you do hit any of these bollards, as we see now, a bit of a, well, they're giving us a view of what it will be come the start of the race, especially in the beginning of this warm-up session. You can see the drivers all run close to each other. You can see how difficult it is to once again see where you're going in this race. I do want to quickly go back to what happened last time out at Sebring, and I do quickly want to update everyone who wasn't there to look at that race. And I do want to inform you on the fact that John Ewan was on pole position for the GT1 Pros, ahead of Barry DiMarzo, who was in the pole position of the GT1 AM class. In GT2, it was Ben Borman who was on the pole position, and Tim Vandenberg, who was on the pole position in the GT2 AM class. Now, in the GT1s, it finished as follows. It was Johnny Gutierrez who took the victory overall, and the victory in the GT1 Pro class. Ethan Funk in second, and Moses de Bruin in third. So, of course, leader of the championship finished in P3 that time around. Barry DiMarzo in the GT1 AM class finished in front of George Angelidis, and in third it was Wayne Hutchison. Of course, Wayne Hutchison leading most of that race. But when it came to the end, and when he really needed to be there, he wasn't there, and went down all the way to P3. Ben Borman started on the pole position in the GT2 class and finished in first position too. So pole position to the victory for Ben Borman in the GT2 Pro class. Matthew Overton in second, and Ross Smith in third in the GT2 Pro class. GT2 was won by Maximilian Putravki, of course, doing well out there. Well, out there again today. Felipe Marazzi in second, and Tim Vandenberg, of course, with that DNF, but still coming through in third, since there were only 3 cars in the GT2 AM class. Well then, I think it's time now to end this warm-up session. The time has come that this warm-up session it has ended, and I think if you look at what last time out at Sebring brought, James, I think racing-wise, we're going to expect a lot of excitement here.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's going to be the interesting thing here today as well. Rain, cars, power improvements for the Porsche and the McLaren, and the McLaren's brakes have been upgraded as well. Let's see how this one turns out.
Well, here we are, and the drivers will now get a chance, about 3 minutes to get onto the grids before we will get rolling for our rolling formation lap. Of course, the drivers will not be allowed, or the pole sitter will not be allowed to get onto the loud pedal until they get to the start-finish stripes, as you can see, where our pole sitter will be sitting. That's when they are allowed to go. Not earlier, because that is to avoid carnage going down to turn 1. And it will also, something different to other series, Alec, it will be a single file start, not double file all the way back. No, single file, and that is, well, especially in the rain, maybe a blessing for the drivers.
Yes. We like to do single file here just to try and keep it safe. You know, we do an orange zone as well. The orange zone for this is actually a little bit longer for this lap. It's pretty much through turn 1 through 10, I believe it is. So it's just to try and keep everybody safe. We don't want to have anyone going side by side and making a stupid dive bomb, especially at this track, because the first turn is just a tight chicane hairpin. So it's going to be very, very tricky for everybody. I even agree with you guys that if we don't see anyone go off straight into turn 1 or through the first couple corners, it will be very, very surprising. But we can only hope for the best, that everyone can stay clean and safe through everything.
Yeah, and well, you touched on the orange zone. Well, can you quickly explain to the viewers, of course, what that is?
Yes, the orange zone is something that we implement just for the first opening lap, just so no one tries to make a stupid dive bomb. If you make a dive bomb or cause an accident or an incident, in that orange zone in the opening lap, it's just a stiffer penalty. We do that just so that way no one tries to do anything stupid. The last thing you want is someone trying to dive bomb the whole field into T1 and basically take out half the grid. So we do that just to try and keep everyone a little safe, let us get through the first lap, and then once we get into motion and get things rolling and everyone's comfortable, then we open it up and everyone kind of goes for it.
All right, well, there you have it, an orange zone, of course, running all the way down to the exit of turn 10, which has a delicious name. McDonald's is going to be the name of turn 10, of course. A lot of, well, interesting corner names here. Of course, turn 1, the hotel corner, McDonald's T10, Shell T11, Amman, of course, turn 12, which is a difficult corner, a very tight 90-degree left-hander, then Bauer, third turn 13, and Zaplin. Turn 14. A lot of interesting names here on this track, James.
Yeah, definitely. I want to pick up something that Wavy Knife has put in chat. That ruins the racing, though, doesn't it? Now, what he's referring to is when Alec was talking about the orange zone, and I believe we were on the single file pace lap. So, what do we think then? Because, you know, most series, double file, go from the start, crack on racing, boys. Do you know what I mean? And girls, of course, ladies, you know, anyway, forget that, you know, yeah, we flip over that. But do you get what I mean? Like, you know, we are going from the start, and every series does that. And this is the only series that we commentate on, really, that does the single file orange zone. Do we think it affects the first one action, or do we think it provides better because the action gets better after the first lap?
I believe it gets better after the first lap. You know, we only do that just because it just keeps everything. The last thing you want is an accident, and it could ruin a lot of people's races. And so with these cars, I actually prefer it in these cars. Other series, like the modern series, we're in GT and you have a lot of grip, and some of the hyper cars, you can do that. But with this, it makes it a little bit easier. You know, these cars do not have good brakes. So if you just put everyone piling into turn 1, you'd see a lot of cars go 2, 3, even 4 wide. And yes, that's all exciting and we love it, but it's just not the best for racing. It's not the best for the opening lap. There's more risk versus reward there. So we want everyone to get through the first lap clean and smoothly, and then let them unload. And there's still great racing, as we've all seen in the prior races.
Definitely, and so we're coming to the end almost now of the orange zone. We have come to the end of the orange zone. We just came out of turn 10. Shell, so that will now mean that we will go into the chicane. Shell, I'm on, and we will come down to turn 13, almost at the end of our single file formation lap. Well, I agree with the fact, guys, that of course it does improve how clean the drivers will race through turn 1 to turn 10, but technically after that it is still the first lap, and drivers are still going to go for it, so it doesn't really matter too much, I think. But here we go then. It's going to be Kirby who's now going to come to the end of his warm-up lap, and we're going to get underway, James.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm 50-50 on this one. I can see the point of it, but then I want to see 33 cars rushing down into turn 1 side by side, double file, and see if they're all brave enough to get through. But anyway, Dan, we're on the start. Over to you.
We are, and it's going to be Daniel Kirby who's going to lead us away. Of course, he can't go until the start-finish line. Here we go. Drivers haven't yet gone. Daniel Kirby. Now he'll plant his foot on the accelerator. It's green here at Motorsports Arena Oschersleben. And it's Daniel Kirby, of course, leading us away. Down in second is Francesco Cancos, who, of course, started in second. And at the moment, it seems like, Daniel Kirby cleaned through turn 1 and 2. It is going to be Francesco Cancos who's going to try and chase him down. Further down, of course, in the field, everyone seemingly, James, being able to get through turn 1 and 2 rather cleanly. However, the Viper behind that almost went wide.
Yeah, unfortunately for these guys settling further back here, they're not quite out of the zone just yet. They're just about coming around the corner where they are able to start fighting. So they should be able to do that about now, to be fair. But as you say, everybody's got through relatively cleanly. Car number 27, who is in 27th position at the moment. That's Joe Miller. Seems to have dropped back from the pack. I'm not entirely sure what's happened to Joe, but maybe he might have been one of the ones that were obviously heading off in his Mustang, of course. Not the easiest car to drive at the best of times, the Mustang, and let alone now you stick it on rain. It's almost like putting BrianB on ice and expecting him to run across the pond. It ain't going to happen, you know what I mean?
No, well, it's going to be difficult at least. Of course, as you can see, we're now on lap number 3. Kirby has just gone across the line on 136.035. That's not a bad first lap. Alec, considering the fact that we could only go on, full speed pace, basically, from the start-finish line on, so we didn't have a great run on to the start of the lap. However, though, we're looking at Gilles Lalonde, who's going to try and make his way past Suvic in P6. That gap between those two drivers about 0.3 of a second. Now, James did just touch on it, the Mustang. Have you had any experience in the Mustang, Alec, to tell us about?
Yes, I did a couple laps in it just when I was doing some testing with all of the cars. The Mustang is a tricky one. It does actually have very good drive off of the corner, but with it being wet today, it will be a struggle. So the Mustang is fast. Joe was really fast in Daytona, and even at Sebring, he definitely was able to do pretty well with it. But today, with how the wet is, it's definitely one of the trickier cars. Be on the lookout for that and the Marcos in the GT2 class.
We've already had our first pitter, of course. Maximilian, who's gone into pit lane. I don't know, has Walter de Bruin taken his penalty yet? I can't see someone on my timing screen dropped away from the field, basically. I think he's going to leave that till very late on, until at least the third lap for him, because the longer he will stay out on track, the bigger the gap will be to the GT2s, and he doesn't basically have to overtake them all. James, how will you go about this drive throughout the start of the race?
Get it done. Go in, end the first lap, get it through, get it done, come back out where you are, and allows you to go through. Car number 20 currently at the moment, who is that? Felipe Marazzi, look like he's just had a bit of an issue. There's a bit of a backlog around about 21st, 22nd and 23rd at the moment. They seem to be bunched up well as well. But I think one of the things that from the boys' point of view is he's got just go and get it over and done with. As you see, there we go. Adrian Rice there off the side of the circuit. What the interesting thing I want to pick up is exactly what we were talking about before about Daniel Kirby not getting away. Is the one that Daniel Kirby is actually happening. He's getting away. 2.2, lap 4, and the gap's extending. And it's what we didn't want to happen here. As you can see, Schultz battling away here with Marazzi and the Viper. Well, he's just gone past. Well, there we go.
Yeah, different classes, a GT1 and a GT2. So that was always going to happen because, of course, has dropped down a bit after his earlier incident in this race. And, of course, Gilles Lalonde still trying to make his way past Timon Suvic. Timon Suvic, however, though, we saw it, of course, last time out too. He's not a slouch in that car. He's very, very quick. And I do expect, Alec, I don't know if I'm right about that, but I do expect this Mercedes-Benz CLK to get better towards the end of the stint.
Yes, with some of the different changes in BOP and everything that they've done, it will start to pick up a little bit. Just needs to take a little bit. It takes a little to warm up the tires in that car, and with it being wet, with cooler temperatures, it'll take even longer. So that one, and really be on the lookout for the Nissan and the Porsche. Those ones definitely are the ones that really come on strong at the end of the stint. So as we see Kirby out front, he's already pulling out a lead of 3.8, almost 4 seconds. We expect that. I expected that to see the Panos come out front. They have really good opening pace just because they're the best car on fresh tires, as they always qualify up front. But wait and get to 20, 30 laps as tires start to wear down and we get into some pit stops. I think you'll start to see Concas and Ethan Funk and some of those guys in the slower cars to just slowly creep back in as they'll be better on their tires.
Walter Brown still hasn't taken, I think, his penalty for going into the pit lane, or has he now? I think he has. I think Walter Brown has gone into the pit lane and has come back out again, so he has taken his drive-through penalty, as he was, of course, obligated to do at the start of this race. Gilles Lalonde is still, has got past now, and Ethan Funk is the next one for him now to chase down, because Timon Suvic has got past Ethan Funk. Ethan Funk looked like a little bit of a mistake there, and that's why he's back here now. Yeah, as I said, it's interesting to see these cars for the first time in the rain, for the first time under race conditions, really for the first time. Everyone absolutely on it, and so far so good, it seems like, James. No real incidents to talk about.
No, and I think that's a surprise, to be fair, because from our point of view, we were expecting this to go somewhat considerably worse. So, and obviously Kirby there just sticking in the new fastest lap as well on a 1:33.340. Now, I've got to disagree, Alec, and I know I'm probably in the booth thinking, oh my God, I'm disagreeing with a racing driver here, but, you know, somebody who drives this car, I can't see P5 just gone off, I think it was. Funk?
Yeah, Ethan Funk.
Funk, didn't he? Is now putting himself under pressure from Thomas Suvic, unfortunately, as they're rushing down, finish straight down into turn one. Ethan Funk made a mistake. And now Suvic's gonna, or unless they're gonna go too wide round here, which isn't really an ideal kind of place, gentlemen.
They make it work. They make it work, James. Let me tell you what, I did not expect that through there. That really tightens up there on the exit. But it seems like Ethan Funk was ahead at the time. Oh, he's off again. Timon Suvic is off the track again, and he's going to lose another couple of positions with that. Ethan Funk not under pressure anymore from Timon Suvic now. Timon Suvic has dropped all the way down to P9 at the moment. You can see him still in P7 on the graphic on the right hand side, but that is not correct. Dropped all the way down till behind George Angelidis, of course, in the Ferrari. And he's dropped now all the way down to P9. Jason Whitehead, of course, has also gone past him too. But James, you were telling, of course, about disagreeing with Alec. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, so I can't see it, Alec. I know you're the man with all the experience. You're the man with all the, the knowledge about all these cars and stuff. But from a broadcast and commentator's point of view, when we've seen cars go this far ahead already, that's they're 5 seconds ahead, I can't see him being caught. Kirby just looks so strong that I don't think it's going to happen. And I'm not, I don't want to start an argument with you, Alec, because clearly you know what you're talking about. But I just can't see this being anything bar Kirby's race as long as he keeps it on track.
Yes. I mean, I can agree with you a little bit. So we haven't seen these cars in the rain, and I haven't thought about that. So with the rain, tires could be completely different. And Kirby is our hot shoe. We've said that. He is the fastest guy in the series. Oh, as we see Eric Monette almost spin into turn 1. But with that being said, the pace fall off, it may not be as much today as we're all on rain tires, different compounds between all the different tire manufacturers we have on each car. But most of the time, how it normally plays out in the dry is that the Panos and the Mercedes and some of the other cars that have a lot of power, they're really good in the opening parts of the stint. And they're really fast and they pull a big gap. But as the stint, we've seen 3, 4, and even 5 seconds fall off. As we see Walter go through the pits now, serving his drive-through penalty that he received from last race. But back to what I was saying, we've seen 3, 4, sometimes 5 seconds in fall off over a stint as the tires start to wear down. The cars that are a little heavier, that have a lot of power, they get the power down so much they just light up the rears and they lose a little bit of drive. But with the wet today, it could manage and mellow that out a little bit. The track's cooler, you're not going to be wearing it as much, everyone's trying to drive a little bit more gentle. And I can't agree with you. As it looks right now, Dan Kirby is out front and on a move. He is pulling away ever so slightly every single lap. So we just have to pay attention and see how the race will play out.
Looks like at the moment, however, though, it is going to be Francesca Concas in a Porsche 911. And as we see Philip Henrique off track in the Toyota GT1. A difficult car to drive this, really. We touched on that last time too. One of my favorite cars, however, though, out of the GT1 era, immediately goes into pit lane. It's weird, really, honestly, because I think Walter de Bruin already served his drive-through penalty a little bit early on, and he's done a second one. I don't know if anyone can confirm that, but on my ear I'm hearing he got a penalty from the game too. So I was not wrong with that. He did do his drive-through penalty that he got from the last race earlier on, but he's got himself another one. So that's not what Walter Brown would have wanted. So I think the Toyota that we saw go into the pit lane, quickly going back to what I was talking about, Francesco Concas. It looked for a second that the Porsche 911 from him was getting faster than Kirby his panels, but it seems like at the moment Kirby picked the pace back up and is once again on a move here, James, trying to extend that gap.
Yeah, it was out at 5.5, and then it went back down to about 3.5, and then it was just sort of rotated a little bit more, but generally at the moment it's settled now. We're out at about 5.5 to 5.8 seconds. I just think if Kirby keeps this on track, with the fact that we're in wets, the fact that not everybody's managing to keep the wet tyres going and can keep the car on track at some point, and Kirby showing that he's really kind of got his own little masterclass running on his own here, I can't see this being anything else. As we see Whitehead and Suvek swap positions coming around, they're just coming on to the start-finish straight currently at the moment, and that is Whit. Is it Whitehead or Whit? White.
Honestly, I've said
Whit.
I believe it is Whitted.
Yeah.
I believe that yes, I believe that is how you say his last name.
Right,
Sorry,
okay.
Jason, if we butcher that for you.
Well, let us know, Jason, of course, if you are looking back at this stream later, because he's busy with driving, of course, now, James. Let us know, shoot us a PM or drop it in the Discord how we pronounce that name, because as you can see clearly, all three of us we've got no real clue on what exactly it will be. I do think, James, looking at the track, it is drying up slowly but surely. I can't see any rain falling down onto the circuit anymore, and I do think there's a little bit of a dry line appearing at the moment.
Yeah, but as we know, it's going to take a while for these to go through. What they kind of really want to try and do is see if they can maximise the length of the stint on the rain, on these tyres, until there is a dominant, definitive white dry line, and then go in again. It's like watching, at Formula 1 cars. You don't want to go out and put on the dry tyres too early when you're still not running on a full dry line. The only problem is with one dry line is the overtake manoeuvres are going to be very minimal, because you ain't going to want to go off the dry tyre with dry tyres on a dry line to go and overtake if the rest of the circuit isn't getting dry. So I suppose from that point of view, they're going to have to be careful if they do make the crossover. When is the crossover going to come? Are they going to be able to cross over successfully enough where they're not going to be tiptoeing around for the first few laps. They want to make sure they are clean, as we're just seeing a replay here as well. This was nearly contact, I believe.
Oh, yes, you
that
were
was good.
indeed right with that. The Viper just about avoiding contact there. And, well, lucky, I think, to be able to avoid that. This is, of course, GT2 and GT1, excuse me, on a GT2, which will mean that the Viper is not really in their class, and that will explain why maybe he had to slow down a bit. Never easy to lap other cars, especially when other cars are on a bit of a dry line. We do now see Aiden Rice go into the pit lane. I want to see, is he going to bolt on a set of dry tires? I don't think that's going to be the case. Might he be one of the drivers who got a drive through by the game 2, maybe for contact, maybe for too many off tracks. We're going to see what has caused that. No, he's going to go into pit lane. He's going to make an early stop, and is he going to go onto a set of dry tires?
Too early. Too early. You saw it with that Viper. Well, he saw it himself. I don't know why he... Look, and there. Dave Coors, of course, chasing down. Who's in front of Coors currently at the moment is if that's Smith in front. But again, you can't go in. That crossover's not there. And we saw it there with the Viper that he manages just to stop the car before they go and hit somebody. To go in and put dries on, I think that would just be crazy decision. I think that would, at this moment in time, would be insane.
Well, the problem that you're going to have, James, is of course the fact that if you do get offline, it's completely wet.
Yeah.
And dry tyres do not have any grooves to, well, get rid of the water that is underneath them. So basically, you're going to aquaplane. The rubber is not going to make any contact with the road surface. And basically, there's going to be water in between the asphalt and the tyre. And as we know, James, aquaplaning, never a good thing in a race car, in any car. Let's be honest about that. If you're driving on the highway and you have aquaplaning yourself, I'll tell you one thing, you're not going to keep that car going at least, I think, 80 miles an hour, 120 kilometers if you were asking, for a long time. But we're going to take a look at what he's done. I don't think I have the information here on my timing screen, to what tire he has gone to.
I actually, according to my timing screen, Adrian Rice is just pitted with the GT1s do not have them, but the GT2s actually have an intermediate tire.
Oh, there we go then.
So
that's Brian Hall off. Excuse me to cut you off there. Brian Hall has gone straight into a wall coming on the exit of turn 1, and he's just gone straight on there, James.
Yeah, he did. He didn't look too good. Didn't look too good there.
No, just brake too late, I think. To just try to turn out of it, try to turn back onto the asphalt. The asphalt strip that is there on the outside of the turn. But, oh man, Brian Hall was in such a good position before that. And all his hard work has basically come undone. And it seems like those Mercedes cars, as we saw with Timon Suvic too, very difficult to drive in the wet. Alec.
Yes, they are. It can be very tricky. You can lock up super easy in these cars, as not all of them have ABS. So coming into turn 1 with that really high-speed section, he looked like he just kind of got off that dry line a little bit, lost a little bit of grip, and just slid all the way into the wall to turn 1. So something that you hate to see.
The quickest Mercedes at the moment is Brian Hall at the moment in P9 overall. Oh, again a big snap for Brian Hall. Look how difficult that car is to drive. Excuse me, I think that was Suvic in the background. You had that big snap. That car seems so difficult to drive. Daniel Kirby again with the fastest lap of the race. And it seems like loads of drivers are improving at the moment. So I don't think, James, it's going to be long until we see that crossover point into dry tires, especially for the GT2s, because they can just stay on their line, and the only ones really having to overtake is the GT1s. Do you say, though, that making that decision to go into dries is made more difficult by the fact that the GT1s do have to go offline to overtake the GT2s?
I think it's going to be the interesting thing. I'm trying to keep an eye on Adrian Rice currently. He's fastest in his sector. We obviously know he's gone over, as we see, of course, into the pits there as well. Got over to intermediates. Wout de Bruyne is still on full reins, right? So I'm just trying to see where, on what sort of category or stage Adrian Rice is going to be by the time he gets to the end of it. Because I think if he's the first man that's going to make a move. No, David Coles has gone onto the intermediates as well. He's obviously gone into the pits, so he's on intermediates. But it's going to be what Rice is going to do and how much faster technically he should be. So if we can keep an eye on Adrian Rice here and see how he gets on with his lap time, it will give us a rough idea on where he's going to be at. And we're not going to have to wait very long. He's just coming round the final corner, and beyond there is yeah. So 1:38.1. So where is that?
Time.
Yeah, new best time, isn't it? 1:38.1. Everybody in front of him is doing 1:39s, 1:46s, 1:47s. So if the GT2s haven't picked up that Adrian Rice has gone in and got an intermediate set on, and Dave Coors is another man who has, then they need to be going in to get them on, because clearly, when you're talking of a lap time of about 5 to 6 seconds, you want to get it over and done with. Get in the pits. They need to get moving.
Well, we can see it now. That dry and drier line starting to appear, and it's more and more apparent where that drier line is. You can see the lighter grey, and well, there we have it. You can see it clearly when we're looking with Adrian Rice. Here he is on the dry tires. Seems to be looking inroads, I think, on a GT1 at the moment. Not losing far as much as what he did earlier on, of course, in this race. So I think it might well be a call soon to go on to the dry tires. As you can see now, the driver's moving on to the right hand side of the straight line, basically on the straight, to cool those tires down.
Well, yeah. Go on, sorry, Alec, off you go.
Yes, they're trying to find every bit they can, especially some of the drivers that are still on those rain tires. When there's not rain and you're on a dry line, they're gonna use them up a little bit more. So they're gonna wear, they're gonna overheat. So, and as we see, Francesco Concus has actually gone a fastest Sector 1. I have actually been looking at the lap times between Francesco and Daniel Kirby, and they're actually running almost the same lap time every single lap, and he actually went faster than Kirby this last lap. So like I said, just wait and see as the track is starting to dry up. The tires are going to start to come into play, and this Porsche and some of the other cars, I don't know if we'll be able to close that 5-second gap, but the gap may slowly be starting to close.
We're going to see Francesco Concas, who's now going to try and go past the Viper 2 of Aiden, and well, across the line he went last time round. I think again a personal improvement. Ivan Suvik, who is going to go across the line again. We're going to see what he's going to be able to do. And across the line, an improvement for everyone, basically everyone. If I look on my timing screen, James, it's going green at the moment.
Yeah, because they've swapped over. It's Ethan Funk as well was another one. We're just talking about him. He's just gone purple. You know, he's saying that he's still on rain tyres, so I'm not quite sure what he's up to. He's dipping from one sort of side to the other, I suppose, to try and keep the some wet in there. He needs to cool him down, because that line is getting more definitive, and if he carries on, he's going to burn out them wet tyres before he can know it. So it's going to be a tough one from him currently at the moment.
No one in the pits at the moment. It seems like we have our first DNF2. Felipe Henrique has gone into the pits, and he will not be returning onto the track. A new best lap time for Daniel Kirby on a 1:31. So lap times are starting to trickle down, of course, not quite the 1:29 stat, of course, we saw in qualifying. I think once we get down to those kind of times, James, or Alec, we will see maybe the drivers from the GT1 start to cross over to the dries, and maybe also the GT2s, because of course, like you said, GT2s have intermediates, GT1s don't.
Yeah, as we see, the line is starting to slowly widen out. The dry line is still pretty much just a single car line, but as the more laps come in, as they slowly start to look for some more grip, that dry line is going to slowly start to expand. And when it does, I expect to see most of the GT1 front runners to start coming into the pits and switching over to dry tires.
Of course, I'm not as experienced as you, Alec, of course, with R-Factor 2, but is it possible to kind of run a raid tire to a slick, like we saw, of course, in Turkey, I think, in Formula 1 2, where they ran the intermediate tires all the way to a slick, just in order to avoid that last pit stop, and do it that way maybe, and try and save yourself a pit stop come the end of the race? Or don't you think that's a possibility?
I mean, it could be, you know, you never know. We haven't really been able to see too much rain with these cars and in this series, so this is all new to all of us. But it all just depends on what the cars are doing behind you. If someone pits and then they start to close that gap to the point where they're going to catch you at the end of the race, you can't really try and stay out. You have to try and switch around to try and find some more pace. But at the end of the race, who knows, if Kirby decides to pit and there's not much not much time left in the race, you could see someone try to sneak around and run it out on some intermediates and see if they could possibly steal the win.
Well, we did just see, of course, the GT1 AM standings after about 16 laps for these cars. Becky Ellie is leading the race ahead of George Angelides in the GT2, or in the GT1 AM class, excuse me. Jay Chen in third there, Ross Smith in first in the GT2 Pro, Joe Miller in second, Aidan Ross in third there. It seems like Aidan Ross at the moment a lap behind already on the leader in P3. Felipe Marazzi in P1 in the GT2 AM class. Peter Meyer in second there, and all in all, I think not too bad. Petrovsky is in the pits, of course. He was third in the GT2 AM class. Stopped to make his first pit stop. Is he then maybe the first one to try and give the drivers a shot?
I mean, possibly, you know, I have to look at the timing screen and see what we can do, but if he is, he may be comfortable with it. The dry line may be coming into play, and it could be a good move. If he gets in early, he can try and definitely make up some positions. But I would like to butt in here and say that Dan Kirby and Francesco Concas have done the exact same lap to the 1,000th of a 10th for the last 3 laps. They have both been running. Oh, Dan Kirby, never mind, actually just ran a 31.6, but they were both run. Oh, and Francesco does a 31.6 as well. They have run the lap to the same 10th every lap for the last 5 laps. So very, very close on pace here. Kirby did a 31.662 and Francesco did a 31.647. So slightly faster, but they are matching each other's pace brilliantly right now.
Ethan Funk is the driver who went to the fastest lap, whilst you were seeing that on the 131.513. Seems like Mike Olsen has gone to the DNF. Mike Olsen, you can see him down on P25. You will also not see him out on track anymore, so that's sad to see, of course. The McLaren F1 has, of course, DNF'd out of this race. Of course, the McLaren F1 GT, and not the McLaren F1 car, of course. We don't have that one here, the old F1 car. That would be a bit ridiculous, having that in between all these cars.
Yes, and I hate to see that for Mike. I actually slightly root for Mike. I actually made the Golf livery on his car, so I hate to see that he wasn't able to finish the race today.
Well, we're going to see what the drivers will be able to do. I'm excited, really, here. Of course, oh, that is the Mustang off the track.
That is Joe Miller.
Not losing too much time, though, does Joe. And back onto the racing line. Didn't lose too much time with that, but of course, that was a little off-track excursion. And luckily, there's enough runoff there, James, for that car to have the room to run off track there.
Yeah, but it's still, as you said, Mustang, rain, big, hot, gruffing Mustang, lots of power. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be his first time for Joe Miller. I think he's struggling a little bit now. He's either got to make that decision where he either comes in and crosses over, and then we're going to have a look at Monet as well. Oh, just runs a little bit wide there, I believe.
He's having a nice battle with Jerry Chen.
But where are you at now, Alec, with this? Would you sit back and think, time for a change here? This line's wide enough.
It just depends on where I'm at track position wise. You know, if I'm up front and running steady as Kirby and some of the guys up front are doing, no, not yet. Try and stay out, try and get a little bit of an overcut if you're running pace that's still stronger. Kirby is still on full rain tires and is running faster than some of the guys who have already pitted first off. Yep. So as Kirby is still pulling a gap, so not yet, but if you are struggling, you're in a tight battle as Monet and Jerry Chen are, maybe duck in, try and switch the tires and see if it'll pay out for you. You know, you don't really have much to lose there. You're just trying to fight for track position at this point as we're still really early on in the race. So maybe pull the undercut and see if you can pull something out.
As you said, very early on still. We're now on lap number 20 of the 70 that we are going to run here this evening. Of course, 250 kilometers on this Motorsport Arena Oschersleben track. 10 seconds is the gap now almost between Concas and Kirby. So that gap keeps extending and extending. If you were Concast now, maybe you were going to make the move to go onto the dries first because you want to gain back as much time as you can and you don't want to lose it. Also, though, you don't want to lose the position that you're in at the moment. So simultaneously, a very difficult decision to make side by side between Eric Monnier. And I think Angelini's who's just gone through. That is the GT1 of
That is Jerry Chen.
Through. Yeah, Jerry Chen, excuse me, going through on Monnier. That is full position, and well, that moves him up into, I think, yeah, P3 class, like I said.
Yes, no, very, very good battle there. He was battling with Jerry Chen, who is another experienced driver we have in the series. So they're slowly starting to make their way up through the field. Becky Ellie, though, is still out front in the McLaren and is pulling away. And it's actually very great to see. The McLaren has been hasn't had the best BOP with everyone else the last couple of rounds, the first 2 rounds we've run. So to see that car up front and leading its class is really cool because it's kind of brought some new light and got a little bit of shine that it hasn't really been able to have.
Monster Brian is the driver looking at now. He's coming down into turn 1. And some drivers have pitted on the last lap. Still has Peter Meyer. A new fastest lap for Kirby again. He goes to a 1:31.344. So a good lap time there for Daniel Kirby. Filippo Marazzi also improving out on track. Of course, he's down in 18th. It's just gone to 1:43.00. He's, of course, the leader in the GT2, so that will mean that Marazzi now with a lead of about 80 seconds over Meyer, who's all the way down on P24 in that class. He's not doing badly here, at least in his own class, James.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, isn't it? I think at the end of the day is to basically manage where you are in your own class more than really worrying about your overall, because at the end of the day, if your overall if you're not fighting in everything else, it's more important to be at least fighting in the class that you're in. And from Wouter de Bruyne's point of view, he obviously had to drive through, and then he's had another one that we think as well. So he's got to start making his way through the field. Unfortunately for him, though, Becky Eli, she seems to be like she's absolutely flying currently at the moment as well. So yeah, I'm not hopeful for Wouter de Bruyne, but as you can see with the rain and anything going on in the race, a lot can happen. And we've still got technically, 49 laps to go. So, you know, there's a lot of action still left here, I'm sure. And from Wouter de Bruyne's point of view, he's got to make that move start going forward.
Jerry Chen here in the mid-pack. Meanwhile, of course, in the Porsche is trying to pick up a position. And once again for Daniel Kirby, a new fastest lap. It seems like the track is really improving rapidly here, gents. At 1:31.119 again. Also is Dan Kirby coming down to the end of his stint, probably to the end of his fuel stint, and his tire stint. So we might well see him pit soon, and we might well see him stretch out that that pit stop a bit to try and get comfortable and to try and see if he maybe can stretch it down and go longer a bit. Timon Suvik all the way down in 11th position in the GT1 AM class. However, though, Timon Suvik is down in 17th overall. Timon Suvik, however, though, on to a fastest lap at 1:30.130. That's a quick lap for Timon Suvik here.
Yeah, and he's still on reins, but he is still in the LMP GT1. So, you know, it's not unusual, as Alex already touched on, that you wouldn't look at changing so fast anyway, because obviously from the Rainer's point of view in the LMP1, in the LMGT1, they're still going quicker. So no surprise from Suvik, but I'm still waiting, Alec. I'm still waiting for this crossover on tyres from the rain here, because if Kirby's showing us anything, he's showing us how to extend the lead rather than how to drop in. So I'm wondering though if what you're saying might kick in if it does dry out and we're going on to drier line. But is the damage already done by that point though, Alec? Is that the problem? And we've got 6 cars in the pits.
Yeah, I mean, as we see now, we have some guys in the pits, so some of them could be trying to make that gamble, and it could come back into play, but right now Kirby has been able to pull out a big lead. I've been watching some timing, and Francesco Conquist has actually been hitting some lap traffic, And on some of the laps where he's hit a big group of cars, Kirby was able to actually pass them down the straightaway, and he had to basically kind of ride behind him through a lot of the tight section because it was really hard to make a pass. So Kirby's extended that lead a lot, and right now with 15 seconds, I don't believe so. If the tire strategy were to come into play like it has in the past few rounds, the lead is too far gone now. I think the best thing Francesco needs to try and pull back through is try and find some pace. I mean, it would be good for him now since the lead is gone so far to maybe make that switch to soft, see if the dry line's good enough, and see if you can make that stop before Kirby and try and reel back in on some pace.
Yeah, I've got Barry Dimarzo. I just want to point something out. Sorry, Dan, for cutting into you there. I just got Barry Dimarzo up, and for a brief minute, it's reading that he was on the hard tyre. Now, I got all excited and thought, has Barry Dimarzo been the first man to take that move? But then I'm also looking at Suvix, and his is fluttering as well. So I'd be interested to see what they're on at the moment. It says rain currently, but between Barry Dimarzo and Suvic, they're showing up as flittering between rain and hard. So I don't know if that's just my timing screen having a little bit of a wonky donkey moment there and pulling an oopsie, but well, you never know.
Mine has been doing the same, I will say. It switches between rain and hard.
Yeah.
Walter is actually, I don't know if he served a penalty, but he was just in the pits, and I went to check to see if he did switch to hard, but it still says rain, so I believe, unless he got a penalty that we don't know about, he may have actually just pitted for rains again, so we'll have to see how this plays out. Yeah, so he did pit for tires, and it is showing rain for me on the timing screen right now, so that is very interesting. I don't know if... Oh, as we have a crash down the front stretch.
Who's that thing gonna be? I'm gonna take a look. Here it is. Oh, that's the Mustang! Oh, no!
Luciano Jalzo.
Well, what can you say about that, James? Really, really unnecessary, to be honest, on a straight at least.
I want to know the Grey Viper. The Grey Viper tagged Miller, sent him wonky, and then it all went a little bit wrong. I'm looking at whether or not Dave Cause may have been, and I'm not, and apologies Dave if I've got this wrong, I did only just see it for a brief moment there, but it was your colours, that Dave Cause may have got into it with Miller, and then unfortunately for him, as we see somebody else going off there as well, yeah, it does look like Dave's Cause's livery may have been involved in that, coming down that straight with that Mustang. And unfortunately, as we see a car off on the left-hand side,
yeah,
as well.
He definitely was, James. You were right with that. He was involved in it.
Yeah. Miller. Cause got out of shape, you see. Miller tried to come through the middle in his Viper. Went over to the right, and unfortunately, Miller was there. And from that point of view, it was good night Vienna, because the other two that went off worse are the two that were obviously into the barrier, whereas Cause seemed to have got off a little bit more lighter, should we say.
We're going to see, that is another car off in the background, and again that was the 94, I think.
I believe that was Gilles.
Oh,
we have another spin.
And that is two Mercedes, I think.
I believe that is Stefan Miller. No, that is Wayne Hutchinson who has just spun there.
That's an Outlaws driver.
That is. No, that is Stephen Miller. Okay, I'm sorry, Stephen. Him and Wayne have very, very similar livery, so it's hard to tell them apart.
Is this then Wayne Hutchinson, maybe? I think it might well be. Looking at the little bit more green that is on that livery. Or is it still Stefan Miller? Yes, it is still Stefan Miller, as you can see on the bottom right hand side. It is Stefan Miller. Looks like we have another retirement, or at least another pit stop. Well, that has been from, I think, all the way down at the bottom, number 91. We're going to see. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just looking, I had a timing screen glitch. It looks like Eric Monet may have pitted for hards, but it is showing rain. Oh, it is showing hard. I'm sorry, our timing screen here is kind of glitching out. It's flipping between rain and hard tires, so I don't know what tires he actually did take.
Well, I have hard fronts and rain rears, so that's going to be a fun combination.
Well, maybe he feels he needs to rain in the rear, because that's where his power is, and he wants to get the maximum grip where he can just slide it around the front.
Yeah, but so, if you then go onto the power, the rear is grip, the front doesn't, because those tires are completely cold. Then you're going to understeer like a boat everywhere.
I know what I'm saying. Obviously, you know, I don't expect him to go out on fast and slicks and rains, but at the moment we are looking at Ethan Funk, who has got the fastest lap currently at this moment in time, just broke the 1:28.554s. So fair play to Ethan Funk there. Again, we would love to be able to tell you what tyre he's on. But as per normal,
Ethan is actually still on the rain tires. Oh no, he has pitted once, but it is still showing. I believe Ethan may be on the hard tires.
I think he is. Looking at the times that he's running, guys, we haven't anyone, well, seemingly hasn't been able to get down into the 28s, even on a qualifying pace with the wet tires. So we haven't seen anyone really. And he's purple in section 1 again. He's green in section number 2. So we're going to see where he's going to go. However, Francesco Concas is going to go into the pit lane. Now maybe, though, we will see a change. The leader is also into the pit lane. Daniel Kirby all the way at the front of the pit lane. So you will have a clear exit of the pit lane at least, as we have another driver of the track again. Becky Ellie is leading the race, and of course the McLaren F1 GTR. Beautiful car, this one. I saw this car at Spa when I was there last year, of course, for the 24 Hours of Spa, when they were historic cars doing their laps there. Of course, that one was there too. Off the racing course goes the Porsche. It looks like he's been able to well, catch it back. That's Felipe Moratti who's done that. And so he's got it back on track. Here he is, the leader in the LMGT2 AM class. For now, though, James still able to lead, and it looks like no changes for Becky, Ellie, and Daniel Kirby. If I look at him, he has gone on 2 hards, it looks like.
yeah, I think that's the thing as well. Oh, Wouter de Bruyne going off. So, unfortunately for Wouter de Bruyne, but he's back on track safely, which is always good. There he goes. Yeah. And Ethan Funk again with the fastest sector 2, as we believe that Ethan may have been on the hard tyres. Is that where we think we're going to go with this one? Because currently at the moment I'm showing is he's on hard, so I think I'm probably going to go with that, and I wouldn't be surprised if our leader Daniel Kirby come out. Yeah, I think it's that changeover now. I think Alec would even agree that we're at that point where we need to be changing over. Would you say, Alec?
Yes. I think that if you look at the dry line, you can kind of tell that it started to widen out a little bit. It hasn't been raining anymore, so they've just been putting down rubber and clearing out that dry line. So switching over to a full slick is definitely going to be the move. As we can see, Ethan Funk is on the hard tires and is running the fastest laps of the race at the moment. But I would like to see and wait and see. Ethan Funk does have strong pace right now. But with them all being on fresh tires now, let's see what Dan Kirby can do on a fresh set of slicks on a drying track. I believe that he could possibly set the fastest lap of the race and come back through and pull a little bit more of a gap.
At the moment, it is an GT1 AM driver leading the race overall. Becky Ellie in the McLaren F1 GTR. Here it is. And, well, he's leading this race. Overall is Becky Ellie. We're going to see if that's going to go on for a longer time. Of course, pit stop still to be made. No pit stop made though by Becky Ellie. So it seems like at least that car has to still go into the pit lane. The only car, honestly, as I can see, Dan still has to go into the pit lane. As far as I can see, the only car together with him might well be Filippo Marazzi.
Oh, we have contact.
Pit lane.
Contact with Magnus Dahlgren in the Me Racing Toyota, and I don't know who that is in the Mercedes.
Is that Suvic? It's not Suvic, is it?
It could be Suvic. It could well be.
Being that he's one of the very few Mercedes, apart from Alexander Schultz and Wouter de Bruyne, and we know Wouter de Bruyne.
Suvic. Suvic is way further back.
So it could be then.
Suvic was a lap down and hit him.
He's going to go round 2. Suvic is going to go round 2. We were talking about him, and he's going to go round again. Now my question is he on hards though? Is he on dry tyres? It seems like at the moment he is, and he's struggling too.
I've still got him on reins.
Well, we'll see what kind of lap times he's running at the moment. Simon Suvic was doing 32, so I think you are correct there that he's still onto the rain tires. So still picked up to be made to Simon Suvic. Maximilian has also gone into the pits. What's Maximilian Petrovski? Or Putravki, sorry, excuse me for that. He's gone into the pit lane, and we won't see him back onto the circuit anymore. That is a DNF. Becchielli into the pit. So I think that we see Suvic go into the pit lane too. So maybe now will be the time, James, for the drivers to switch over to dry tires.
Yeah, if they haven't, they should be already. And Becky Eli is probably going to be doing just that, to be fair. I think there's going to be others that have, if not, they haven't. They should be. And I believe our leader currently at the moment will be as well, Daniel Kirby. So I'll be very surprised if he's back out of May. Yeah, so we're basically back down to the fast lap times that we saw. Ethan Funk has still got it though on a 1:27.308. Kirby on a 1:34.23. Now, I'm not saying Funk is going to pull the thing, but Dahlgren has also gone faster, 1:27.12. I'm expecting Kirby's pace to pick up because he ain't going to want to lose that 10-second lead, but we'll see what happens.
Magnus Dahlgren, the snap he just caught was incredible, and well, we're going to look at another replay here. This is, that's wide again. Luckily, there is the room there to do that, Alec, and the drivers are exploiting that to the maximum.
Yes, that was Gulharm in the McLaren who just had a slight off track in that tricky section. That section is actually very hard to find because it's hard to judge your braking zone going into there. It's a slight crest, but as we cut to the battle with Dan Kirby, let's see what lap he's able to put in here on some fresh tires.
Daniel Kirby across the line now. Will he set the fastest lap time? He will not, but he will set a personal fastest lap time. There we go, a 1:27.514. So he's almost there on his first lap onto the hard tires. So that just tells you how quick Daniel Kirby is. Now the drivers that have switched on to the hard tires and the dry tires earlier than Daniel Kirby will start to see some graining onto the tires. The more you start to slide, Alec, the more graining there will be in the tires, and the slower effectively that tire will be. And once you start sliding to a certain extent, there's no holding it back anymore. And even if you take it to 3% out of your driving style and just back it down a bit, even then you're still not going to get rid of the graining that is onto the tire.
Once they're gone, they're gone. That is how the tires on this work. Once they start to slide away, you will lose a lot of pace over the stint. So Ethan Funk though is 11 seconds. He did pit early, so his undercut did work pretty well. But we just have to see how much pace he's able to put in, as Dan Kirby now has probably got some temperature in the tires. Looks like he could maybe put in a faster lap and start to pull a gap away. But now with the track drying and with them, we assume for them to all be on hard tires, watch as the pace goes through this stint. And let's see if possibly Funk can come back towards the end when that Nissan is nice and easy on its tires and Kirby will have to warm them up and overheat them a little bit.
Well, Ethan Funk has been on that tire for so long already. Daniel Kirby has just gone to a 29.239. So that will mean that he won't improve on his quickest lap time so far. Ethan Funk, though, once again an improvement for him at 27.898. And across the line he goes with that. And, well, again, a good chunk of time taken out of that lead from Daniel Kirby. So Daniel Kirby's going to have to watch out here. Another replay here. We look again. The number 13. He's going to go wide again. He's going to exploit those track limits. But it's all worth it to keep that car on track. And again, he manages to survive. That was Guilherme. And again, it seems like for him, another time lucky that there was at least a bit of runoff. Becky again with a good lap. Let's see if she can put in the fastest lap of their class. And across the line, well, at the moment on a 37.
28.0.
A 1:28 is what I see appearing on my timer screen right now. That's a good lap time, isn't it, for Becky?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
She's flying, isn't she? At this moment in time, to be fair, Alec, I think she's absolutely flying.
Oh yes, no, it's great, and to see the McLaren have that pace is really great. We talked about it a little bit with them not having the best BOP in the first two rounds, so to see that car and someone be able to drive it to its full potential and put it up front is really cool to see, and it just shows how close all of these cars are. They're so separate in their pace and everything, but if you put the right driver in the right car and if they click with it, they can make anything go fast.
Well, another replay here, and this is once again off the track. We've seen it a couple of times now here, haven't we? And again, room there for that runoff, and I think a lot of drivers would be happy for the amount of runoff that this track has today, because it seems like on track excursions definitely more than if it would have been a dry race. But the track now, gents, completely dry. I honestly can't really see a wet line anywhere in the circuit anymore. So if you're out there on wet tires now, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, no. With how the track is starting to play out, it still has a wet line if you go off of the main driving line, but it's basically full dry. You know that you can see the times that they are putting in. It's this almost the same as what it was. Not quite, still a few seconds off, but the times are getting better and better and better. So if you're on rains, the track is just going to get worse for you because you're just going to struggle the whole time to try and find grip.
Do we think anybody is going to be? I'd be very surprised about now if anybody actually is on rain tyres.
I believe some people may, but depending on where their pits is, as we actually see, Dan Kirby does a 26.9, fastest lap of the race. So Kirby will slowly start to pull away that gap from Ethan. We'll have to see if Ethan can come back, but he is on a couple laps older tires, so it kind of comes into play. The undercut helped him get up some track position and get up into P2, but I don't think it'll be enough to try and catch Kirby.
Now,
oh, Alec, is that you admitting? Is it the admittance, Alec, that we're not going to get a Kirby-Francesco battle, or do you think we may be getting a Kirby-Francesco battle?
No, I mean, Francesco is almost 20 seconds back now, and Kirby is just slowly starting to walk away from this. As you can see, his tires are heated up. He's doing the fastest lap of the race. He is the fastest car on track right now. And as much as I would love to see someone come up and fight Kirby, Kirby is just that good to make it and stay out front. So I don't know yet. We'll have to see in the next pit cycle of what happens. But right now, Kirby just has the best pace on the track.
You're a brave man. You're a brave man to say that. If he now, of course, bends it, you know that he's going to blame it on you for commentator cursing.
Oh, yeah, no, I know Kirby probably will. So Kirby and I have actually had some good battles in some other series and stuff. And I will say, I don't want to jinx it, Kirby, okay? I have a lot of respect for you. But he has had that happen multiple occasions where he's pushed it just a little too far over the edge and had something. So I may have said and cursed him, but hopefully that's not the case today.
Cherry Chen is a driver we are looking at the moment. And Cherry Chen is at the moment in P10 overall P4 in his LMGT1 AM class. Now, Monnier is in front of him. That is, well, the car you can see up ahead. 1 second between them though, however, he's now going to try and make his way past. There you go, the traffic in between those drivers is, well, a lot at the moment. And you can see that Cherry Chen is really trying to make way here up through the field, James. And like you said, everyone now on their, well, dry tires. And like I said earlier on, graining is a thing. So do you think now that we will see some drivers that were earlier on in the race, well, maybe getting up the order, fall down again because they've switched on to the dry tires maybe just a tad too early?
Just
Hold on, I'll get Alex crystal ball out. I can't answer that one. It depends on how hard they push it, isn't it, Alec? Really? I think that's going to be the biggest thing on how hard they go at it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really just depends. You know, tires are the biggest thing in the series. It's how much grip can you have, and if you overdo it and wear them out fairly quickly, normally that's what happens in the Panos, is that the guys are really fast at the beginning of the stint. They push really hard, and then towards the end they lose it a little bit. But as we saw in Sebring, that happened, and Ethan Funk got into the lead of the race in the middle stint. But then at the end, he didn't. When they had to pit for fresh tires again, Johnny Gutierrez just had the pace and ran away with it at the end as it was a short stint. But I don't know. I'm still kind of up in the air with it. So we'll have to see what Kirby can do. And it looks like he has full control of the race as of right now.
Well, Kirby almost coming to the end of the halfway point of this race here, Alec. And, well, so far we have had 34 laps here. So we're on lap number 35 here. Daniel Kirby is going to lead the way, as you've seen, pretty much. Not in any danger so far. Ethan Funk, however, it did look like for his second, Ethan Funk was going to try and maybe mount an attack on Daniel Kirby, try and get closer. for the moment. However, though, that gap still 15.8 seconds. Francesca Goncalves, of course, rounds off the top 3 in that class. Now, the thing I do want to point on is the fact that the difference between the GT2 class and the GT1 class, it has kind of come down a bit now that the rain has gone and that the track has dried up. Becchielli is leading, by the way, in the GT1 AM class ahead of Barry Dimarzo and Eric Monnier in P3 in that class. That's the top 3 in the GT1 AM class. Looking then onto the GT2 field, the GT2 Pro field, Ross Smith is leading the way there, as he has been for quite a while now. They, of course, in P2, and Adrian Rice has gone into P3, of course, all on the same lap, like you said. Of course, very good to see all those drivers on the same lap. Felipe Marazzi also on the same lap as Peter Meyer. He's leading the way in the GT2 AM class. Peter Meyer in second, and Maximilian Putravki, of course, he is out of this race and is not going to finish this one, so he is DNF'd. We will not see him on track anymore, James.
Yeah, no, it sucks to see when you have cars pull out like that. But as we saw in the beginning with the tricky conditions, that the cars just everyone struggled a lot. So, but now with the track drying and everyone's starting to find their groove, as we're about halfway into this race, everyone's settled in. It's grind time. It's what they need to do to try and catch the car in front of them and try and settle in, get through. But don't do anything stupid. That's the big thing. You don't want to have anything happen now. Get to the end and put yourself in good position to try and do the best. As we see, Adrian Rice actually does the best lap in GT2 with a 1:34.6. So he's slowly starting to come back through the field. He's still in the lead lap. It's about 14 seconds behind Dave Kors and Ross Smith. The early pit stop may have hurt him a little bit. He may have struggled a little bit in the beginning with switching to those hards first, but hopefully he can try and come back towards the end of the race.
Well, we're going to see, of course. We're just over halfway. And we can't really take anything, can we, from like the first half of this race, Alec? Because it was half wet, it was half drying up, and then like the last 4 or 5 laps of the first half of the race were dry, so we can't really take anything from the first half of this race. So this second half of the race is really going to be new territory for us to see how these drivers run on race pace. Do you think we will see, however, well, maybe the order of who is quicker and which car is quicker at which part change? Before you're going to answer that, I do want to tell you Adrian Rice, you can see it here on a quick lap. He's purple in sector 1, yellow in sector 2, so he is going to try and see what he can do in that class. He's at the moment third in the LMGT2 class. We have a driver off in front of us. Who's that? It seems like the number 93 again.
I believe that's Giles.
Yeah, well, and again he's gone off track there. Now there is not a lot of room there on the outside, so I'm not surprised, or I won't be surprised if he did hit the wall. Yeah, he has got damaged, it seems like, on the front right of that car. That car does not want to turn whatsoever, so he's going to limp back to pit lane. Would be interesting to see what has exactly happened to him. I don't know if we can get a replay of that, if we can catch a replay of that. But of course our producers will be working in the background. There we can see it, definitely damaged to the front of that car.
Oh, he's missing a whole front right wheel.
Missing.
Yeah, no, it looks like he may have had some contact. I don't know where it could be. If we can, it looks like we may be getting a replay of it. But yeah, just hard contact. Oh, big snap oversteer into the wall through that section. We said in the beginning, turn 4 through there was going to be tricky. 4 through 7, it's very tight, and you have to flick the car in right, and he just missed it ever so slightly. Couldn't tell from the replay with the angle, but he may have just slightly drifted offline, caught that wet a little bit, and it just spun him around.
Well, that's unfortunate, honestly, for him. Adrian Rice, once again, on an improvement for him in sector number 1. Last time around for Adrian Rice, who's 21st overall, a quickest personal lap, so he did improve his personal best lap time. Now what I do find really interesting is the fact that even though it's now dry, the GT2s in the dry, they're still slower than the GT1s in the wet.
Yeah, that's just with pace. The GT2s, they don't have as much grip as the GT1s. They don't have as much top speed, and that's a big thing too. So So it's a big give and take with it. The GT2s, you know, they have their parts that they're good at, you know, in the slower speed stuff, just because they have a little bit more mechanical grip. But when you get into the higher speed stuff, the GT1s just kind of walk them off the corner. And how some of these corners are with them being kind of slow, it's a tight hairpin. Coming off the corner with slow speed, the GT1s really get off the corner good. Whereas we noticed at Daytona, actually, with surprisingly the high-speed corners, they actually can maintain their momentum very well. So it takes them a little bit longer for a GT1 to pass a GT2 down the straight.
Well, can you say that, you know, maybe the GT1s were the LMP2 or the LMP1s that we know now as the modern day? Maybe they were the LMP1s from back in the day, really. At least
Yes.
that's how I see them.
Yes, no, they were the hot shots back in the day. You know, they were the top class of cars. So that's basically what you have to compare them to. And I know one thing that everyone's saying is if Francesco can catch Ethan Funk, and I'm looking at timing screen right now, and he's actually running. Yeah, I'm looking at the timing screen, and he's slowly catching Ethan Funk with a 20. His last lap was a 27.5, and Ethan Funk's was a 28.2. So we'll have to see what can happen there, and it just depends on tires. That's the biggest thing, you know. With him having the newer tires, with Ethan pitting earlier, you can kind of see that he's slowly creeping back into pace. We'll have to look at the end. There's still almost 30 laps left in this race, so you never know.
Well, Alexander Schultz up ahead of Wouter de Bruin, who of course had that drive-through penalty earlier in the race and then got another one after from R Factor 2 itself. He is now going to try and make his way up the order in the GT1 Pro class. Alexander Schultz is under attack now from Wouter de Bruin. He's all over him, and you can see the difference in speed just between Wouter de Bruin and Alexander Schultz. He's going to try and, well, clear him as quick as possible. However, though, look at Schultz though through that section in the Mercedes CLK. It is such a quick car through that high-speed section. It seems like, though, through the slower stuff, that Wouter de Bruin is a bit faster. Them being in the same car, though, can't really explain that. That must be different in setup.
Yeah, no. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things they've got to work on, haven't they? These, you know, Schultz and De Bruyne. It makes all the difference anyway in general with setups, and that's what we know. You know, some people talk that whether or not setups make you go faster, whether or not they do, whether they don't, do they equate to the half a second that, you know, people are saying it equates to? Does it equate to? How much does it equate to? Who actually knows, really? But neither of these guys have had a great opening stint coming out the rain. You know, they're sitting 7th and 8th currently at this moment in time in their classes. So it's whether or not they're going to, in an ideal world, if you looked back and said, ideally, you would want Schultz and De Bruyne to work together so they can move the cars forward. But we are talking racing drivers, and as we see Schultz there kick up a load of dirt by taking too tight of a line, I don't think that's going to happen. So, and De Bruyne, as we know, has been off grass tracking a couple of times as well. So I think both of these have just got to really work together at the moment and move their way forward if they can. Let's just put it that way.
Both of Brian overall at the moment, James, is in P12, so still has some drivers to catch up. Of course, as we know, being in P12 is not that bad if you've had two drive-throughs. Well, two drive-throughs basically.
Yeah, but it's still not ideal, is it? Would you know what I mean? From De Bruyne's point of view, it's still not ideal when he's only got, because he got behind him, he's got Suvic is the other one behind him. So from his point of view, he's kind of right at the back. And yes, the penalty was self-inflicted from the last one. And yes, he got another one from R Factor. But it didn't necessarily mean that he probably could have saved his run. As we're looking at him now, is he going to go left? He is. Is he going to make this move down into turn one here for De Bruyne? He has. But is he going to get the car stopped? No.
No, he's not.
And that has been De Bruyne's problem throughout the race. He's been attacking, off track. Attacking, off track. Attacking, off track. And he's just attacked again, and he's off track again. He's got to slow himself down. I think Alec can agree as a motor racing driver, when you get in this sort of situation, if you're going to see red mist constantly, you're going to drive like a bull. You're not going to be gliding like as if you're an ice skater on ice. You know, you're going to be doing something completely different. And at the moment, De Bruyne is driving like a bull in a china shop, rather than a race driver on a clean racing circuit that's now suited to dry tyres.
Yeah, no, he just seems to be in his head a little bit, and and that's the thing that you can get when you make mistakes. You have to relax and be calm and go, okay, I made the mistake, let's move on. But what he seems to kind of doing is he's compounding his problem, and everyone has done it as a racer. You spin, you get frustrated, so then you try to go all out, balls to the wall, and end up making another mistake. So he just needs to tone it back. Yeah, he just needs to tone it back and just manage, and don't compound his problems and make things worse. Just focus on what he has going on. Just be smooth and try and carry up and pick up some more positions.
This might just be Dutch courage, to be honest, because I know myself, of course Dutch as well, that if I do make a mistake, I try to, like you said, go all out, leave nothing on the table, and I spin again, and I do the same again, and due to that I spin again, and then I do, like, it's all a downhill trend that you're in, basically, and if you're not careful, you ain't gonna get out of it anymore. So you have to try and pace yourself too. This, however, is the battle for P2 in the LMGT2 class, and it's Adrian Rice who's going to try and overtake if he can. Dave Course, he's a lot faster, as you can see. He's already caught up to him. And the Viper against the Viper, he's going to try and overtake him. And he's pulled to the inside for the left-hander. And he's going to try and make that pass, and does that easily. He's passed already. 6 seconds, James, is his gap to the leader in that class. So that's not a lot.
No, it definitely ain't. And the way he's making moves at the moment, I wouldn't put it past him. This is probably one person who may have a chance of catching their leader in class currently at this moment in time. 1:35.219 for Rice, 1:35.665 for Smith. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility here that Adrian Rice will get forward, as we're still seeing Concas. Is he itching away at that gap over to Ethan Funk? Yeah, it's up slightly at this moment in time. Last lap 1:29.3, 1:28.2 for 1:28.2 for Funk and a 1:29.3 for Concas. So about half a second he's just lost during that one lap.
He has been gaining that gap. I can remember. I don't know if I recall this correctly, but like I think at some point that gap was 15 seconds, and it's come down quite considerably now. So it's going to be interesting. Maybe Alec can help us on this. But is this the panels just losing that pace? It's good at the start of the stint, you said, but afterwards it's just eats through its tires.
Yeah, no, we said we've seen it in the first two races of this series at Daytona and Sebring, where the Panos is very strong at the beginning of the stint, and that's why it always qualifies so well. You always will see the Panos up front in qualifying just because they have that grip on the tire. But with that, they overheat the tires. They use more of the tires, so they end up losing it a little bit. So, and this is pretty common. We saw this at Sebring where, the Nissan and the Porsche, the cars that are a little bit smoother and easier on their tires, they just slowly come back and creep through at the end of the stint. But Kirby did have a big lead at the beginning. Ethan Funk is going to have to pit sooner than Kirby because of him trying to take that undercut. So, and he still has a 20-second gap over Francesco. So we could see something happen, maybe, if they can find some more pace, if the track dries up some more. But it just depends on, what all will play out. Right now, it does look like Kirby has the upper hand.
What do you think, though, is going to be the case with pit stops? Because when will the pit stop window be that you can only make one last pit stop and you don't have to go into the pits again? I think we're already pretty close to that, aren't we?
Yes, it looks like it. It looks like I'm expecting within the next 5 to 10 laps that everyone's going to try and make their second stop. So with that being said, we're getting really close. I do think Ethan Funk is going to have to pit a little bit earlier, possibly within the next 5 laps I'm seeing, just because he pitted earlier. But I expect Kirby to go maybe 7-8 more laps.
I think that was Stephen Miller, and I believe that might have been Wouter De Bruyne sat off the side there.
No.
In the black Merc on the right-hand side as Stephen Miller went through.
No,
there.
I don't think it was. It was the number 97, I think. Don't know exactly who that is, but the number 97 was off the track. But that's been, I think, the case a lot here. We've seen that car off track quite a quite a lot of times already, and he's actually done more of the same that Walter de Bruijn has done. So both of those drivers, I think, experiencing more of the same that you said earlier on, James, just not quite pacing themselves wise. Well, as we see now that Ethan Funk has gone into the pits, he's dropping down the order quickly, and he has pitted, has made his second pit stop, has dropped back down to P6, and he, I think, Alec, is good to fight till the end.
Yes. If he played his full strategy right, as we look and see, we have about 25 more laps or so, almost 20 laps, 24 more laps. So he's right in that pit window, so it's going to be very, very close. He may need a fuel save a little bit, but that can help him save a little bit of tire, and he'll really, really have to fight hard till the end to try and catch Kirby.
Now, the gap was 11 seconds, James, coming, of course, into pit lane. I will be interested to see what this does. If he has new tires, he will start to gain immediately now, because even though Kirby switched on to those dry tires quite late on into the changing phase, still you're going to slide a bit more than that Ethan Funk is going to do now. So those tires, at least after the first 2 laps, will be in a lot better shape than I think Daniel Kirby has at the moment. So I'm anxious to see where he's going to gain now. Of course, traffic is going to be a massive part too, but I think that with the tires he has now and the setup he has on that car with the dry tires, he's going to be able to gain a lot of time on Kirby.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yes, for sure. He's got the pace right now, and so we'll have to see what his lap times are as he comes through. It wouldn't surprise me if he possibly was able to set a new best, as the track is just getting better and better and better. It looks like we almost have a full dry track. It's hard. I don't really see any wet lines out there,
Yeah.
so we'll just have to see what he can do. He's at the man in the machine. He's got the pace, and now he's just got to put the hammer down and make it happen.
Herbs are laying down rubber out on track, so the track getting quicker. With every lap, the drivers turn at the moment the quickest lap time at 1:26.992. That's about, I think, where we expected the quickest lap time to be. Now, well, I think a bit further back, Dimarzo has also gone to a personal best time on a 1:28.826. So that is at the moment his personal best lap time. He also did just improve that. Walter de Bruijn, of course, we saw him drop back down to 11th. Adrian Rice, though, he has been very, very quick throughout this entire race, and I said it a bit earlier on, I think, but he could potentially catch up to Smith ahead of him, and well, Ross Smith could well be under attack in just, well, I think 2-3 laps of time here, James.
Yeah, I think it's not a matter of, if Smith's going to be getting caught, it's when, I think. He's 1.5 seconds faster last time around. 1:35.3, 1:33.8. So Rice currently is the man on the move. He's flying along quite nicely, and I don't think, unless Smith can do something and react rather quickly, he's going to get caught here, and he's going to get caught very, very shortly as the gap's down, what looks like down to be about 2.7, 2.8 seconds. So if it goes again, he's going to be looking within about 2 laps. This battle here will be together with Adrian Rice and Ross Smith. And honestly, I don't think Smith's really got a defence. I don't think he's going to be able to hold somebody back who's going so quick. As we're just about to jump to a replay. Schultz gone round by the looks of it. Oh, too much. Goes round there, gives it too many beans. And the back end wants to come round. He manages to stay and keeps hold of it. He's still on the grass though. But there we go, at least he wasn't into the barrier, I suppose, would be the way to go on that one.
He's on the Schultz, yeah. Well, he's been having troubles with that Mercedes. That Mercedes, Alec, has seemed very, very tricky in this race, and it seems like a lot of drivers struggling with it. Not only, of course, Walter de Bruijn, together with, well, a lot of drivers are actually in this Mercedes, which I did not expect really, since it's such a difficult car to drive. Walter de Bruijn, Stefan Miller, also Alexander Schultz, who we just saw spin round. Of course, the quickest Mercedes on track, Brian Hall too, also in a Mercedes. So a lot of drivers in a really tricky car here today.
Yeah, no, the Mercedes has a lot of power. It has a lot of torque coming off the corner, so they've all been getting caught out by it a little bit. It's happened before, we've seen it at other races, but with this circuit being such a kind of a tight, and this really isn't a high-speed circuit, it's really flowing. You've got to be really patient, and I think it's just catching them out really, really it's catching them out a lot. So you just got to be very gentle, patient, and not try to do anything stupid. But it's really hard. Those guys are riding that fine edge with that car because of how touchy it is, but it can be really fast, as we all know from, I'm an American, I'll pitch on the NASCAR stuff. Loose is fast, and that car is very loose, but it can be very fast.
Too loose is not very fast, is it, no, Alec?
No.
Well, no, now I don't know if my American friend in the booth, James Parfit, knows what loose means.
American friend.
Oh.
Did you just put me in a completely different part of the world? Yes.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. It's like saying to you, Dan Peebles is from Germany.
Oh yeah, that's an insult, isn't it?
Or a Scotsman from England.
Oh, that's
You know what I mean?
Well, my European friend is what I meant to say.
No, English is fine. English is fine. God, blimey, listen to this. Abuse up in the booth here. I'm sorry, there's going to be fighting words going on very, very shortly. And Dan Peebles will be no longer. Gee.
Well, there we go.
I'll fly out to Germany and find you and beat you up, Dan.
Yeah, all right. Fly to Stuttgart and we'll meet up there.
Yeah, fly to Germany. How rude. Right, anyway, so now we've just been told off by producer Paul in the background there, saying, boys, concentrate on the racing. So we're back to the racing here with Ethan Funk, who's being caught at the moment. I'm just waiting for my live time in the tower to buffer on quite nicely. So there we go. But Adrian Rice here.
No contact between the two, James. Sorry to cut you off, but the Viper makes contact. Ross Smith, leader, of course, the leader has gone through, but the second place man, Adrian Rice, is the man we're looking at. He made contact, I think.
That's not Ross Smith.
That is Eric Monet, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes, in the GT1. Yep.
Yeah, Smith's down the road. There's Smith there at the bottom of the pink car.
The pink markers.
It was Adrian Rice though who was caught up in that, and the Viper too, wasn't it? I think it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Here we go. Here we have Adrian, and he was caught up in that too. Unlucky, really. I don't think it was his fault. Any opinions on that? He did pinch him. He did pinch him to the corner.
But the car is beside him. It's kind of like leave a car's width and stuff. He was beside him, I think, from in his defence, I've got to be honest, but never mind. I'm sure there may have been different circumstances in the car.
Well, as I always find it myself, I always can't really see something well out of the car, and then I always have to see the replay before I can really honestly give my opinion about it. And of course, as a driver, you're always going to think you are in the right, aren't you, Alec? And of course, you having experience with that, I don't know if you have had an incident like that, but definitely a multi-class race you've raced in, and it is difficult, the traffic, isn't it?
Yes, I'll give you the racing thing when you're in multi-class sports car racing, and this is what most all drivers will say when they're in the higher tier car. the slower car is always at fault.
Well, we've been driving the 12 hours of Sebring, James, haven't we? And of course, being in the slowest class, you don't have to deal with it, but still, you have lapped traffic too. But it's so difficult, isn't it, to being the slowest car and managing the traffic behind you, because the only thing you're going to see, and especially here with the GT2s and the GT1s, with the difference being so big, it's just a car flying by you, and you have to kind of see it early on, otherwise you're going to be caught out.
Yeah, we had it a couple of times. I think that's the thing. We had it a couple of times in our multi-class. You've got to be aware of what's going on behind you. We had a guy literally dive bomb me from about 20 yards away going into sunset at Sebring. We've got Kirby in the pits now currently as well. So they've got to be aware of that situation. And Francesco is in the pits as well as Concast there as well. So we'll see what happens here. But they've got to be aware of the situation. If they're not aware, I'm not saying mirror drive, because as Alec knows, mirror driving is never good and it's never going to get them together. But, at the end of the day, you've got to be aware of your surroundings. And if you're not aware that this faster car is coming up on the inside, then, not really sure how to go about that one.
Yes. I mean, it's just kind of a racing incident. I think with that one, they were both kind of going for the inside line. Monet did pinch him, and it was too close on from Adrian Rice, but I believe both drivers will both point the finger at the other guy. But you know, it's just, so we'll have to see what happens there and see if there'll be any penalties or anything awarded for that. I don't believe so, but.
I do just want to point out, James, you had high hopes for Adrian Rice.
I did, but he's in the pits.
Yes, he is, but I also told you that it was difficult to catch Smith because he's been quick all race long, basically. Now,
no, I don't think it was difficult. I think since he's had that incident, I think Adrian Rice is. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something going on within the car, of course, but I still think. Well, he's pitted now, so I think it might be a highly unlikely possibility unless of course Smith goes in as well. But we'll just have to see on that point of view, I think. But I'm not going to say never, but it's going to be more difficult.
That is a hard hit for the Porsche, and he's not going to have that.
Filippo Marazzi.
Yeah, well, that was the leader, I think, wasn't it, of the GT2 AM class? It was Marazzi. Here he is. He's been into the pits. I think already. Has he not, or is he still limping back to the pit lane? That car still seems to be trundling along nicely at the moment. No, there's not. Yeah, no, there's damage on the front of that car, and I think he's going to go into in the pit lane this time around. Yes, he is, for damage, and that will basically, if nothing crazy happens here, gentlemen, that will give, of course, Marazzi, who's crashed out of the lead. I think that will give Joe Miller the lead of that class, wouldn't it? No, Peter Meyer in 18th will give that him the lead. And, well, if he doesn't do anything crazy, I don't think he's going to be out of that lead until the end of the race.
Who is that in the gravel? Gilles Lalonde. I think it was Lalonde who was involved with that Porsche. But, you know, I'm just speculating as well. So we'll see what happens about this as well. The thing is with incidents, right, and Ali can probably vouch for this, is despite the fact that obviously there was so it was Gilles Lalonde. You know, despite the fact that we think nothing's going to happen with the Rice incident, it doesn't mean that as a driver you're not going to be like, hold up son, you know, you've dived, I've turned in and you're there, and then Muna is going to be like, I had the room. You know, it's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen the other, and I have to sort that one out really. And Dahlgren has got a double purple currently at the moment as he's going around the final, into the final corner. How is he going to get on across the line here for Magnus Dahlgren?
Looks like he got a bit held up there into that last sector, but across the line, and it is a purple lap time. It is a 25.715. What a lap time from Magnus Dahlgren. That is an incredible lap on the 25. Like I said, we are going to see quicker laps because the tires are newer. There's no grading on the tires. We have a Viper off the track again. It's a battle between P1 and P2. Kirby and Francesco Concas both now within almost a second of each other. And don't exclude Ethan Funk from this either, because he's only 1.2 or 4.2 seconds back.
I believe Kirby may have had a problem on his outlap that we may have missed, because his outlap was almost 15 seconds slower than what Francesco Concas' lap was. So that's why this gap is closed in drastically to see what happened. I'm hearing though that there may not have been an off track. I don't know what it may have been or caused, but there definitely was some time lost there from Daniel Kirby.
Or was that maybe just a longer pit stop? That could also be the case, couldn't it? To just maybe take tires too instead of leave the same tires on. I don't know really, because it doesn't seem like Concas is really able to keep up with the pace that Kirby is putting down. And Kirby might as well, with the gap that he had, James, go for a safe strategy. Put on a new set of tires to at least be safe till the end and know that you have a car on the gear that you already know how it's going to handle.
Yeah, from Kirby's point of view, he's just got to kind of get his head down now and open up the gap. And he's already opened up a bit of a gap already, so he knows what cars he's got today. He knows he's going to trawl through as we go into the last 16 laps. I don't think Kirby's going to be under match damage, because I just don't think Concas today has got the pace to be able to keep with him. You know, gaps back out 5 seconds, is it already? So from Kirby's point of view, he's on it. He's on it like a car bonnet. Well, Funk might catch Concast if nothing else, but I don't think he's going to get Kirby.
Ethan Funk is going to get close to Comcast, and just like Kirby, or just like Comcast, exactly like you said, it's difficult to just get close to Kirby really, because like I said, I think he's done what I said and put on a new set of tires. Judging by the fact that he's just gained what, about 3-4 seconds, even 5 almost, to Francesco. This might well be just new tires, and looking at the pace that both, well, Becky, Ellie, Ethan Funk and Francesco are doing, it looks like they did not take new tires, and this might well be Kirby's to lose still with the new tires.
No.
Yeah.
Did we not run through this already? I'm sure me and Alec have already had this debate about whether or not Kirby's going to get caught here. Okay, let's do this one, right? If Kirby gets caught, Dan, yeah, and through, when we meet up, I will pay for lunch, right? If Kirby doesn't get caught and wins, yeah, when we meet up, you pay for lunch.
That sounds like a good deal right there.
No, that does not sound like a good deal.
Why?
That is
Why? If you're that confident, if you're that confident that Kirby's going to get caught, put your money where your mouth is. That's what they say.
No, I literally said Kirby's not going to get caught because he has new tires on. That's what I tried to clear up. So I think that
I don't know if I heard it that way.
Well, Kirby is going to be the one who will lose this race basically if he drops out of P1, because it's his to lose. He has new tires on the car. Anyone else hasn't. So I think I agree with what you said, as we see once again. Oh, that is a wall hit though for the 13. And that is not what he did. Well, basically this whole race, just cutting that corner. If you do go off, there is a possibility that you can do that. And, well, Guilherme Benke did not, well, hold on firm to the steering wheel there. Into the wall he goes.
Yeah, that wasn't good. So that's not what I heard, Dan. That wasn't what I heard. But if that's what you said, then I'll defunct my deal. Because, as I say, I don't think Kirby is going to get caught, to be honest.
No, exactly.
The only one that might get caught might be Concast with Funk. But even then, that's going to be a bit of a push as well, because that's now out at about 14 seconds. So, you know, Schultz down here as well. Currently in, where is Schultz? He's in 12th place at the moment. P12. So, from Schultz's point of view, he's battling, trying to get hold of Luciano Ricciardo, who is the car in front currently at the moment, as we can see there. So this battle might come to fruition. I do love that looking Merc, you know. Oh, Ricciardo gets it all wrong there, gets a little bit of a slide on. I'm not going to lie. But I do love the looking Merc. I may have to take it out for a spin.
Well, the thing is with this car, if I jump into this car and drive over a crest basically, I'm always scared it's going to flip me up into the air.
Yes, it may do. But it'd be interesting to do a 360 in this, wouldn't it?
Well,
Adrian Rice. Told you.
There we
Adrian
go.
Rice has just gone through into first.
Ross Smith, I think, has also made a pit stop like I expected. He had made one pit stop, and I don't think that with the pace that Ross Smith was running, he was fuel saving by any way. And he had to do that basically during the rain period. Didn't we say that, James, that only when it was raining, really, the GT2s were able to only make one pit stop. And it seems like in the dry, that's going to be a lot of a stretch. And no one really, only on one stop apart, the leader in the GT2 AM class, Meyer, who has not made a second stop yet. That's the only one.
Yeah, I can see that's the only one there as well. We did say they might have to make two. But if that's the case, Rice has made 3 here. So just goes to show how much pace Rice has got. Yeah. If he's currently made 3 stops and is currently now leading, you know, the GT2. So, you know, Adrian Rice, how far would he have been if he only made 2 stops? So, yeah. But Meyer could just go in, get a cup of tea, sit down, get some lunch, go to the toilet, come back out, and then jump back in the car again. And Marazzi would still be 2 laps back. So it's not like Meyer ain't got time, really.
Well, I guess you could finish this race early. You could just pull into the pit lane on lap number 69 and say, well, that's the amount of laps I'm gonna turn. I ain't gonna lose any laps anyways, because the driver behind me is 3 laps behind. Or is that not a thing, is it? No?
I don't know if your maths works out there, Dan, because if he sat in the pits for 3 laps, the other car's going to go past him eventually.
If he pits on lap number 69, there are only maximum 2 laps that the car behind him can gain. No,
I don't know. Well, Dan, it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. I just don't know if that's a thing necessarily in the rules. But I suppose technically, from what you're saying, yes, at lap 69, he could go in because it would be the penultimate lap to the white flag lap. So which then would mean 69, 70, 71. So as long as his pit stall is over the line by the time that Maya comes across, by the time that Marazzi comes across the line on lap 70, the last at the end of lap 70, then yes, he could do it. But it depends where Maya's pit box is, and depends on what it states in the rules as well. Because
exactly,
we'll see what happens.
I don't know. Well, I know the rules on finishing a race. If you have to finish to be classified, usually that's the case. This is Alexander Schultz together with Luciano Ichazo, who's trying to catch up. That gap is about 6 seconds, and I think that it has come down a bit over the last 3 laps.
Yes, it looks like it. Well, no, not quite. They're running similar pace, but it doesn't look like Alexander Schultz has had any extra grunt or found any advantage that to try and catch Luciano Ichazo. They're both kind of late. Actually, not late. They pitted not too long ago from what it looks like, but they're kind of just running about the same pace right now.
Yeah, to report on, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, it's Eric Monnier.
Yes. How sad for him, of course, Eric Monnier. Well, oh, is this why it happened? Yes, it is. Rearwards into the barrier, and it was that a tire that just went flying there. I don't know if I saw that correctly. Here we're going to have another look at it. Just gets up to the grass to avoid an incident ahead of him, and just spins it. And I think that is probably, well, a drive shaft broken at least, or at least a tire that is off. And well, if one rear tire is off, Alec, in R Factor 2, you know that you're not going to make it.
No, a rear tire comes off, you will have no drive. Oh, and it looks like that was George Angelides who spun there and caused that incident. So it sucks for Eric Moynier that he just got caught out by that, and kind of his race is over. So it's just bad things that happen. But yes, you lose a tire in R Factor 2, you're not really, a rear tire at least, you're not really going to go anywhere. You're stuck in the water.
Well,
yeah, I think that's all sims, Dan. I've got to be honest, because I'm pretty sure in F122, if my rear tyre joins my front tyre, I definitely ain't going anywhere. So I probably understand that might be all sims that might do that, mate.
I don't know. If I get my rear tyre off in iRacing and my right-hand side tyre is still on, I can still drive. It will be difficult, but I can still drive with about, what, 10, 20 kilometers an hour and limp it back to the pit lane. In RF2, I think that's not the case.
I think you should just...
At least from my experience with R Factor 2, which is limited, of course, as a driver.
I don't know, to be fair. Not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that you would just press the back to pit button in iRacing if you've got no rear tyres, to be honest, because you ain't going anywhere very fast as we go into the final 10 laps here currently as well. Kirby is leading the LMGT1 Pros, Eli Eams, Maya the GT2 amps, and Rice done the new fastest lap and is leading by 4.5 seconds. 1:23.1. 1:33.1, sorry.
1:30. Well, fastest laps difficult to keep track of because there are of course so many classes here. But even though he has set that fastest lap, the gap to Ross Smith has not grown as much as I thought it would. With that fastest lap, of course, him being quicker the whole race basically. The gap to Ross Smith has basically almost stayed the same since we last checked on this battle.
Where are they at the moment? 4.5. Well, the thing is, as well, Rice was closing, wasn't he? And then he went into the pits and he had that little bit of an incident with Monet, who's now unfortunately out. So, you know, I think if Smith's going to go, he's got to go at him straight away, right? And he's got to try and match the time that he's at the moment. Rice, as you say, last time around, basically was on a 33.7. Swift's just done a 1:33.7. So he's not gained anything, but he hasn't lost anything. from Smith's point of view, he's got to stick that right foot down on the floor a little bit more and try and close that gap up, because otherwise he ain't going to have enough time. Rice has been consistent. You know, you've got 8 laps to go now, so he hasn't got long. And you know, obviously everybody in general has had something happen today, right?
Yeah.
Kirby, you know, generally something's been happening because Kirby lost 15 seconds, Concaster's had his bit, Funk's had his bit, Dahlgren, you know, they've all had something happen. So we're not really showing Rice's true pace at the moment, because partly because he pitted he's got one more registered pit stop than currently Smith has got anyway. Smith's on 2, Rice is on 3. So where would he have been if he hadn't taken that pit?
Well, at least about 30 seconds out of him. If that was maybe just a drive-through here. We're looking at Daniel Kirby once again in, well, the panos, and that car just, it looks aggressive. Now, quickly, gentlemen, before we get on to the last 5 laps of this race, where we really get down to the crunch point, best sounding car in your opinion? Go ahead, you first, Alec.
For the Ferrari 333. You can hear it screaming around all points of the track. It doesn't matter where it is. That car is based off of, I believe it's an F1 V10, I believe it is, with a similar engine. So, or maybe a V12 actually. I'm not too sure. I'm sorry for all the Ferrari fans that are gonna come after me now. But the car sounds amazing. So George Angelides there in it. I know he's a big Ferrari fan. So I'm pretty sure we could all agree that's one of the best sounding ones.
No.
Okay, James. Well, I think James disagrees with that. Go ahead, James. What's your best
I do. Partly because when you're listening to a car, certain aspects of the car you listen to, right? And you can hear it with Angelides' Ferrari here. You know, it's like a, you know, it's not. It's like a more of a, like when it gets to high speed. It's like more like a whee. You know, it's a big old whine when it gets to the top. But if you go on board with a Viper and you hear that, that's where you've got it. That's where you've got it. So there we go.
You might have changed my opinion on the best sounding car there. However, he's also changed his opinion on what he's got to do, and he's listened to James and he's put that right foot down to the floor. Is Ross Smith, and he's closed that gap up to about 3 seconds. So he's gained about 1.5 seconds over the last 2 laps of this race. We're now getting to the crunch point. Only 7 laps to go here, maybe maximum about 8 for some drivers, but we're getting to the crunch point now, James, and well, it looks like we might have a battle for the lead in the LMGT2 Pro.
Yeah, it's really the only class that we have possibly going to be looking at getting a lead in. You know, Kirby's just dominating, and Eli is, well, she's absolutely creaming it. Maya, well, he can just go on holiday, come back for lunch, and then get back in the car. Marazzi will still be a lap down. You know, Rice is now 3.2 seconds with Smith. Smith, obviously, we said he's got to put the hammer down. The problem is, it isn't the fact that he's trying to put the hammer down, but he's not pulling out enough time. He's only pulling out 3 tenths. Now, if you times the 3 tenths by the 6, they should near enough be together by around about the second to last lap. Now, the problem is for Smith, he's obviously got cars like this that want to overtake him and get past him. So he's going to be losing time when really he needs to be going forward and not going backwards. And this could be the worst possible thing that Smith could ever need here. Now, obviously, it's going to work out for Rice the same down the road when the car catches him up. He wants to get past. But from Rice's point of view, that car might come back through further on. And there's another one. And now, look, more time Smith's losing. And he can't afford to be losing this time. I don't think. And please, Ross, you know, don't be. He lost 4 tenths that time around, so I can't see him catching him.
Right, he's gonna need some magic here. Still round about some 3 seconds, so still that 6 laps should be enough to, well, almost be side by side with him crossing the start-finish line. We're gonna see how this one is gonna play out. Of course, 6 laps maximum left here. 5 for some drivers as they come to the end of that lap. Here you can see at the bottom right, Ross Smith together with Adrian Rice. And, well, of course, different parts of the track. You can see the delta between the two. You can see that it's growing at the moment, 3.5, 3.4. Well, honestly, like the Marcus is to be quicker at some points of the track, and then the Viper is quicker at other points of the track. So it's really difficult to keep an eye really on the delta, because different cars are quicker at different parts of the track. However, though, one thing I do know is that he will be giving it everything to catch up, and as you can see, now they're overtaking Rice, and you can see the time that Rice is losing with that.
Yeah, but he's not, in conjunction to where Smith was.
Are you sure?
They went past Rice on generally what was a straight. Smith got done in a corner. So from his perspective, he's not going to be losing as much time as Smith does.
The gap is going out massively though, James. Look at that.
Yeah, but watch. Just watch. If it works out that Smith will catch him, fair play to Smith. He's I wear a woolly hat. That's never good for me to be eating, to be honest, because I get the string stuck in it, I might choke. So we'll see what happens. But let's see how this goes here.
Oh, I will say, Ross, last lap around, Adrian Rice did a 35.6 and Ross Smith did a 33.3. So he is knocking down that gap and trying to close them in.
The gap, however, though, now growing again. This is going to be a common thing here. The gap is going to fluctuate. It's going to go down. It's going to go up. Really, what we're going to see here, Adrian Rice is opening up that gap again, and now the cars are going to have to go past him, and now he's going to be under attack from both the Mustang too. The Mustang, however, though, could still be in the way, because that's the same class, just as quick as all the other cars that he's been fighting with. That could well be in the way.
Yes. When you have to fight with the same class car, they are in the slowest class car with the GT2, so it's not like you can have someone that you can just go by and pass them. So we'll have to see what Joe Miller does here, if he allows Ross to get by or if he holds him up and gives Rice a little bit more of an advantage. So really tricky with how things plays out. Joe is still in this race, even though he is, well, not really in the race. He is a lap down, but he still is fighting for pride at this point. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, I can already know what James is going to say. Get the lap car out of the way, and he's doing that now. Ross Smith to the inside. I know how James is about traffic. Traffic, just get out of the way if there's a fight. Now, I do disagree with you on the fact that the driver has to get out of the way if there's no fight. If there's a fight, you have to be competent enough for this driver to say, okay, it's just not my fight to fight. If I'm in between those drivers, I'm going to let the other one pass too, because I want to give both drivers an equal opportunity to get the position that they're fighting for. However, though, we're now down to the last 4 laps of this race. And James, was I right with that?
What?
With the assumption that you were going to say get the lap car out of the way.
Yeah, pretty much. The problem is, right, I'm old school, right? I grew up on Formula 1. Formula 1, blue flag, move, right? Now, I get this. Now, before we go in, and people go, oh my God, James is off again. Right, I get it, right? He's like, yeah, I am off again. But he gets the opinion that they shouldn't move, or they've got to stay on the line and facilitate the pass, right? Great, right? The rule is amazing. They should facilitate the pass. How many times do you see a lap car trying to facilitate a pass at the end of a very long straight in the braking zone, going into a very tight hairpin, and then they lift off and go, oh, it's all right, you take it. Oh my God, you have like 360 meters to lift off and let him through. Why do it in a braking zone in a corner? Come on. And this is what I mean. They just don't think. I love everybody driving. I fully appreciate it, because you're doing better than me. But God blimey, governor, if you're going down a long straight, lift off and allow them through. Don't do it with the braking zone when you seem to think you're allowed to at the end of a straight. No, you're not in a battle. You're 1 lap back. Shift off halfway down the straight. You didn't have to take it to the braking zone. Let them through before the braking zone.
You can see how passionate James is about that.
It does. I mean, it just drives me crazy. It's a rule that I think that it's a rule that's so interpreted into a different way that across multiple leagues that we do, and I don't think that's the thing. There's no clear black and white on blue flags, and like now, Rice is waving, like he's flashing at this car, right? This car is clearly in front of us, and it either needs to be very much quicker, or it needs to politely move. Because if it isn't quicker, then it's going to get caught. But, you know, touch wood, it looks like it could be a little bit quicker as long as it don't spin off and cause a mass drama behind him. But there we go. Let's see what happens.
Here we go. Now on to the last 2 laps of this race for both of these drivers almost. Ross Smith is now all over the back of Adrian Rice. And where is he going to be able to make that move? We're going to have a look onto the next 2 laps. Into the last right-hander of the course of the lap we come. And once again, we go through Zeppelin, and across the line we will go for another lap that has been completed. The leader has gone on to the second to last lap. Daniel Kirby has led this race, well, basically almost from start to finish, really. He's been really, really quick, and 18.5 seconds is the gap. Where, however, though, Alec, is this one going to go?
Well, I will say I've been looking at the timing sheets the whole time while we've seen this battle, and last lap around, Adrian Rice did a 33.9 and Ross did a 33.3. So Ross clearly has the pace here, but we're really close down to the edge of the race. There's only about 2 laps left, so Ross does have the advantage pace-wise, but how close can he get and where can he set up a move to make the pass?
Catching, fine. Passing, different story.
Oh, yeah.
Altogether, absolutely. You could stick, you know, and now we've got a lovely faster car behind him that's going to be sitting there going...
Yeah, Francesco.
Yeah, but, yeah, so he's got to be looking at the...
Oh, he makes contact.
Come on.
Yeah,
really?
I hate that.
Oh, man. And that's what we mean. Like,
Yep.
racecraft and sensibility would say, please just wait.
What happened again? He's off track. Yeah, this is Ross Smith's chance of a victory in the LMGT2 Pro class absolutely gone. I don't think he will be able to catch up to Rice again. No. We are on to the last lap, however, with the leader. Daniel Kirby has gone on to the last lap. George Angelidis, who tried to make that pass. Here he is. Here's Daniel Kirby. And, well, 21 seconds is the gap in the end. And James, Alec, we were all right about the fact that Daniel Kirby was not in any danger whatsoever after he took fresh tyres at the pit stop, at his last pit stop. At least we think he has. And, well, we're going to see where it's going to put him. Luciano Ichazo here in P8. He's going to try and make his way round because he's now, at the moment, in P11. Walter Brian is ahead of him. Is he going to be able to make that move, though? Not quite at the moment. 2:10 is the gap. A car off ahead. The Viper, they're going to come onto the last lap only just about now. That just tells you how big the gap is between Kirby and Walter Brian and Luciano Ichazo. But it seems like Daniel Kirby, well, no danger for him whatsoever, James. And it seems like he's going to come into the last sector victorious.
Yeah, he's just coming around the second to last corner. We're sure we'll pick him up. There he is, live on your screen. He's just, well, been dominated. You know, we talked about that is somebody off there. Do you know, that car reminds me of the Batman car. It looks very Batmanish.
It does.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. As Daniel Kirby comes across the line and wins today's race here at Oschersleben Dam.
Yeah, he does. Well, Francesco Gongas tried everything he could to hold him off. Wasn't quite able to do it. 14 seconds, I think, is going to be in the end. No, it's not. It's going to be, well, around about 21 seconds, I think, like the gap was. But he gave it his all, and I think once he knew that Kirby had fresh tyres after that last pit stop, I think there was no holding it anymore for Gonkas. It was he did everything he could. So did Ethan Funk. Wasn't quite able to catch up to Gonkas ahead of him. Dahlgren, though, he was able to keep behind him. And well, what a drive from Ethan Funk to pick up P3 in this race overall. And Becchielli also going to win the LMGT 1AM class. This is Magnus Dahlgren, who is in P4, going to come through in the Toyota. What a nice car this is, too. For me, the best looking car in the field, at least. There's Toyota, the number 89 from Magnus Dahlgren. Across the line, he's going to come rounding off the final corner. He come through in P4. And, well, a little bit further back, Jason Whitehead is going to come through to take P5. He's, well, slowly going to come across the line, not pushing at all. He knows that this is all he's going to get. And behind him, of course, the drivers were already lapped. Oh, he has already finished. Yes, indeed, he has. Becchielli, you can see there. took, of course, the win in the LMGT1 AM class. The LMGT2 AM class is won by Meyer, of course, by a mile. 2 laps in front of the whole field there. But yeah, what a drive it was from all the drivers. And well, all in all, I would say, James, not a bad race here. We had it all. Rain, a drying track. In the end, a dry track where we finished. Not bad at all.
No, not at all.
Had all the drama. Anything you could have asked for, we got here today. Lap traffic, rain, different mixing conditions. So definitely was a good one.
Smith could have come away very unhappy.
Oh yes,
I'd love to get Smith in for an interview, because I'll tell you what, if he ain't going at it by now and clenching his teeth and fighting his breath or fighting every one of them drivers in front of him and going like, get out! I'll be very surprised, because he was flying.
Well, the results are on the screen. The GT2 AM class, you can see it here. Peter Meyer won that class by a mile. About 3 laps out of Felipe Marazzi and Maximilian Potravki, of course, doing enough to keep his car in P3, but not finishing the race. I don't know if he's going to be classified and going to get points for that. However, here's the GT2 Pro class. Adrian Rice in P1, Ross Smith in P2, Dave Course in P3, and Joe Miller in P4. As you can see, the session's just switching over. Here we go. That was the GT2 Pro class. Leading on then now nicely to the GT1 AM class, where we're going to find ourselves with, I think it was Becchielli who was leading the way there. Here we have the race results. This is the GT2, or the GT1, excuse me, Pro class. Daniel Kirby is finished ahead of Francesco Concas. Ethan Funk in P3 out of Magnus Dahlgren in P4. Jason Whitted, of course, you saw him finishing in P5. As I said, Becchielli leading or winning that race in the GT1 AM class. And Jerry Chen coming through in second in the AM class. Here we have the classification in the AM class. Barry Dimarzo coming through in P3. Stefan Miller coming through in P4. And George Angelidis in P5. That rounds off our top 5 there. And Guilherme Benke, of course, the last of our finishing drivers there. Eric Monche not making it to the finish. Here we have the GT1 Pro class. Daniel Kirby leading the way ahead of Francesco Concas in P2. Ethan Funk in P3. Magnus Dahlgren in P4. Jason Whitted P5. Brian Hall P6. Walter Brown after his drive-through. 2 drive-throughs even. Comes through to finish P7. So a good comeback drive there for the man leading the championship coming into this round. Luciano Echazo in 8th. And Alexander Schultz in 9th. And Timon Suvik coming through in P10. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, and well, a very, very good race. And I think we basically had it all. We do have the winner of the overall race and the winner of the GT1 Pro class into the booth. Daniel, welcome.
Hey.
Daniel, are you there?
Hello.
Oh, there he is. Daniel Kirby, welcome. Well, Daniel, tell us about how your race went. Of course, it was tricky, changing conditions and traffic, of course, out there too. Tell us, how was it?
Yeah, it was pretty tricky, especially in that second stint after we switched to dry tires. The car felt like a completely different car. It had like way more oversteer than I was anticipating, so it was kind of tricky to get it back up to speed. But after that, just manage the tire temperatures and save a little bit of fuel here and there.
And tell us, well, strategy. You know, it was an interesting one. We here in the booth had our hands full of it. We were seeing, of course, who was on which tire, who was doing what, and the traffic as well. Did the fact that you had to overtake the GT2 class off the dry line, did that also take a part in your decision making for going to dry tires, and when you did that?
No, the track, by the time most of us switched in like the pit cycle, the track was more than ready for it by like several laps before that. But just for my fuel strategy, I wanted to run out my tank. It was really tempting to switch early as possible, but I also wanted to stretch out the tank because we were expecting rain, but it stopped and never came back. So the dry tires worked out fine.
Well, a question that I have, because something that I thought you did at the last stop was take tires, and the rest did not. Is that the case?
Yeah, I had a decent margin, so I figured screw it, why not try and take tires, and then I dropped right behind Francisco there, and then it was relatively easy on new tires to just get back through again.
Yeah. So of course, it looked a bit closer than it in the end was, and I think a good strategy call there from you, Daniel. Of course, you've had now 2 basically good rounds in the class. What is your goal for this season now, coming off the first 3 rounds?
This particular 98 series, I'm kind of just doing part-time. I think this might have been my first actual race in the 98s, but so I'm not really like caring to go for a championship in this series. I'm just here to have some fun.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Kirby, first time taking part in the 98 series, and immediately is victorious on the top step of the overall podium. Daniel, thank you for your time, and of course, good luck at that next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we will continue our interviews then with the winner of the GT1 AM class, Becky Ellie, into the booth. Welcome.
Aloha, thank you.
Well, Becky, tell us, how was the race for you? Changing conditions as well. Of course, traffic that you had to deal with, and then and strategy was a difficult one. Well, as well, I think.
It was awesome. I've never done a change in weather race on R Factor 2, so that was a first. That was fun. And I got my strategy wrong. I looked at the North American one, was like, oh, they did 55 laps. So I planned for 55 laps. Suddenly it was 70, and I was like, well, I'm not going to change the way I race. I'll just do what I know, stick to it. And it meant going long, and it meant I led a lap. I've never led a lap before, so that was awesome. And yeah, just took it easy, did my own thing, then crashed into the pit wall on my second pit.
Oh no!
Locked up the brakes. My first big lock of the race, just take it nice and easy, but locked up, smashed into the pit wall. Then from then on, my steering wheel was all sideways, but I had a big enough gap that I just took it easy, let people past, and coasted on home. Yeah, really fun race.
Well, during, of course, the period that it was drying up, you had to go long too, I guess, when your strategy is basically to go long the whole race. And did it make decision making in the end a bit easier because you could go into the pits when the track was already drier than most of the drivers went in?
Yeah, I mean, I went in too late, like way too late, because I was immediately going like 4 seconds a lap faster after coming out, like 4 or 5 seconds a lap faster. So I left it way too late, but I knew I had an okay gap behind me going in. So I was just like, well, I'll just go long and just see what happens, really.
Yeah, well, of course, the last time out in the GT2, or excuse me, in the GT1 AM class, you were, I think, not in the top 3. Yes, I can confirm, not in the top 3. What's your goal basically for this season, for the 98?
Just to have fun, really. Last time was my first race, and I messed up. Had an R Factor 2 pit glitch where it put me on the wrong tires, and I spun because of it. And yeah, just have fun. That's all. It's a really fun car, and yeah, I just want to enjoy it. Not too bothered about anything else. If I get bumped up to pro, or if I stay in AM, just whatever. It's all good. It's fun racing with everyone.
Well, there we go. That's Becky Ellie, of course, winner of the GT1 AM class. Now, I do have to ask you one thing, because I did see that. One last thing. Is it Ellie, or how do you pronounce it, James?
Eli.
Eli.
Both are wrong. It's Eli.
Oh, there we go. So we were
This
both
one,
wrong.
sorry.
Eli. So like simply just Eli.
Oh, so we should just
Alright.
whack 2 double E's on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would work. That would work.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh, well, Dan. We're both wrong. Sorry,
Yeah,
Becky. We got you
exactly.
completely wrong throughout the whole entire race.
That's all right. Most people do. Even at work, people call me Ellie instead of Becky. People always get confused by my name, so no worries there.
Oh, all right. Well, there we go.
Becky,
there you
I
go.
have a question for you.
Yeah,
Not many people have run the McLaren this year. I know they did some BOP with it. How are you enjoying that cars? We don't really. It's not a very common one in the series.
I love it. Absolutely love it. It handles like a dream. You just have to be really, really careful on both brakes and throttle. And it's really slow braking, like you have to brake early. It's really slow down the straights, but through the corners, it is amazing. It's probably the best car out there through the corners. And it just makes such fun racing because of it.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it come back around and that you were able to drive it and take a win in it today. So we see it out there, but not many people have been able to put again a good result with it. So to see that was really cool. So good drive.
It wrecks the tires so easily. I think that's the big problem. I was fuel saving the whole race, and that meant that I'm looking after the tires. But when I was practicing and I tried doing a low downforce setup to try and make up for its low top speed, the tires were wrecked within a few laps.
Yeah, I had a very similar problem when we ran the Porsche. It's hard to try and find some give and take with it in a setup, but you clearly figured it out and were able to get it good. So really good job today.
Slow and steady wins the race. That's all it is for that car.
Oh yes.
That's what the turtle said to the hare.
What?
The turtle said to the hare, "If you're the hare and the hare and the turtle, tortoise." No,
Oh, yeah.
nobody know that story.
No, not really.
Oh, Paul knows, don't you, Paul? Oh, never mind. Okay, well, never mind. I'll stop talking. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Of course, winner in the GT1 AM class. Well then, we will continue with the interviews and we'll bring Aidan Rice into the commentary booth. Of course, winner of the GT2 Pro class. Adrian, welcome.
Thank you. How you going?
Well, Adrian, first of all, how are you? Must have been a tough race out there for you.
Well, yeah, I have to get up at 2:30 in the morning to get here, so it's always a bit interesting whether or not my brain's going to switch on. But the setup was good, tyres were good. I just probably stayed on the intermediates a bit too long. I had a little spin, and that probably cost me most of the time where I ended up. So that's all right.
Yeah. Well, you had a little bit of a fight there in the end. Come the end of the race, basically with Ross. But you also made a pit stop more. Was that a strategic decision?
I started on wets, and the track wasn't wet enough after a few laps, and I couldn't keep up with the Porsches in the wet anyway. So I thought, no, I'll duck in and go straight and go in the intermediates early and try and make up the time by being faster. At one stage there, I think I was 4 or 5 seconds a lap faster. So it let me sort of jump a few places. But I was saying in the waiting room, I got to find a better way of counting my laps. I always end up on the wrong lap count in my head. So I was actually about 3 or 4 laps further into the race than I realised. So yeah, I might not have, but yeah, that's just how it worked out for me.
Well, we saw, of course, the battle in the end, and we saw that at some point. I think Ross had some unlucky traffic. What was your thought, of course, going through the last couple of corners when you saw that Ross drop down a bit?
No disrespect to Ross at all. He's been driving with him racing with him for a while, but I was driving actually to a lap number for tyre wear because I thought I had more laps to go than I actually did. So I still had plenty of pace if I needed to call on it. So I was just driving to a number at that stage because I thought I had another 5 or 6 laps to go. So it wasn't really a worry. I don't tend to worry about things behind me too often, actually, to be honest.
Well, you're the first driver we've spoken to in the GT2 field, really. How was the rain out there in the car? First time really experiencing the rain in these cars?
Wasn't too bad. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't really that wet at the start. It was, and so it didn't take very long for a dry line to start. So it was slippery. The Viper's got a lot of low down torque, so it's always fun with no traction control and all those sorts of things. But that's why we drive them. But no, it was actually, it wasn't too bad at all, actually.
All right. Any question from you in the booth, guys? From James or Alec?
No, I mean, Adrian ran a great race today, so there was a really good result. And to hear you say you had more pace is scary because we know you had pace all throughout the race. So
I was actually carrying. I don't know how much. I just didn't stop. I've had made the mistake of repairing damage in races before, but I was actually carrying a bit of damage from a couple of contacts with GT1 cars as they got a bit enthusiastic with their lapping and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know how fast it could have gone, but like I said, I was actually driving to a sort of a lap number that I wanted to do to just to make sure I had definite tire, because tires were a big problem when during practice and that. Just very hard on especially the left front. Left front would there was no way you could do a full more than one stint on a set of tires in normal circumstances.
Man, that's crazy to hear, especially around this track. Like I could understand with it being I kind of understand it with it being such a flat corners and the kind of 180 hairpins that you kind of have with it doing that. But it's crazy to hear that you guys were only really able to manage one stint on a full sprint kind of pace. So good to hear though that you were able to manage through it and take home the win. So good job.
Thank you.
Anything from you, James? Or
I'm all good. Just well done, bud. Looked like a great race from your point of view. So amazing through.
Right. Well, Adrian, thank you, of course, for coming and making time. Congratulations on the victory in your class, and good luck with that next time.
No, thank you.
And then we'll pull a man in, of course, who will be, well, I don't know if he'll be angry with the traffic, but of course got unlucky.
I'll tell you what. Paul better have his bleep button set up, I'll tell you that much, because if I brought in Mr. Ross Smith after what he went through in them last few laps, I'd make sure I was on the bleep button and a radio delay, but never mind. Go on, Ross, tell us about it.
Oh, thanks for bringing me in, guys, and covering that. That was a lot of fun. I was really hoping we could have it out at the last lap there, but Francesco obviously felt the need to make a pass in the inopportune spot, and I'll just...
And George...
Yeah, George. I mean, that wouldn't have been an issue had it not kicked off at the front part there. I mean, I probably could have been able to catch up a little bit, but at that point, I was mostly driving angry and probably put on more of a drift than it was necessary. But yeah, all in all, it was a good race. I was pleased to see it. Marcos burns tons of fuel, so I mean, being able to do anything just in general was really difficult. Obviously, setting up strategy here was crazy, but it was fun. It was fun overall. I loved driving with Adrian. I'm glad we got to have that at the end.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I was really impressed, man. Like you were running him down at the end, and I was really happy to see you come on to form. So I almost wanted to hop into the other channel and listen to you and George about it. I was waiting for you to scream at George about it, but it's good to hear. Sucks that happens for you, and that happened to you, and wish we could have seen you more at the end. So, but good job, man. It's really good drive.
Thanks to you guys too. It's a good show. I can't wait to go back and watch the broadcast.
Yeah. Well, that was Ross, of course, second in the GT2 Pro class, and I think that was all for today. That was all for the interviews. Gents in the booth here, James and Alec. Give me a sentence on tonight.
Interesting. I'll say that. With how the strategy played out with rain, that was the first time we've seen rain with these cars. So how everything played out with their stint, and like Ross talking about with fuel strategy and tires, it was completely different from what we've seen in the first two races at Daytona and Sebring. But it shows it's going to make this season quite interesting, with all the different races. I guarantee you we'll see rain again. So now that they kind of have some experience, all of the drivers, and kind of understand what they need to do, going to make the season very, very interesting. And I'm really happy to try and cover it and see what happens.
All right, that is it then for this evening. Of course, we thank everyone who made this possible. We thank everyone, of course, who's been working on it, who's made the mods. And, of course, a big thank you, of course, to everyone in the booth, to you, Alec, to you, James, and, of course, to Paul Glover, the unsung hero, the man you don't hear in the background, of course, doing all the production for us. And
we do, don't we? Unfortunately, in our hero, Mr. Glover, proper producer.
I don't know if it's unfortunate. He's quite a calming voice, has he?
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Well,
I can listen to him telling me a bed story when I go to bed. And,
Well, there we go. Paul's going to read down a bedtime story, everyone, before we let go of the booth. But there we go.
well, like I said, we thank everyone who's made this possible. We thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, of course. And yeah, well, I'm gonna do what James always says. You never know. You might see you on the track sometime. Good night.
Yep. See you, everybody.